My son texted me the day before his wedding. Do not come to the ceremony. My wife does not want to meet you. She thinks you will make her family uncomfortable. I stared at the screen. I did not reply. I did not call him to beg. I did not scream. I simply closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and opened my banking app. By the time the sun rose the next morning, my son and his new wife were knocking on my door, desperate, broken, and begging for mercy. Before I tell you how I destroyed their perfect day without lifting a finger, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments what city you are listening from. I want to know how far this story travels. My name is Isaiah Carter. People call me Ike. I am 73 years old. I stood in front of a three-way mirror in a shop that smelled of lavender and old money. The tailor, a small Italian man named Giovanni, was fussing over the hem of my trousers. This was not just a suit, it was a bespoke tuxedo. It cost $5,000. That is more money than my father made in 2 years of sharecropping in Alabama. Giovanni patted my shoulder. Mr. Carter, please stand still. We need the break on the shoe to be perfect. Your son will be very proud. I grunted. I am not a man who likes to be touched. I looked at my reflection. The tuxedo was midnight blue. The silk lapels shined under the soft lighting, but no matter how expensive the fabric was, it could not hide the man inside it. I looked at my hands. They hung by my sides, large and dark and heavy. The skin on my palms is thick, like old leather. The knuckles are swollen from 50 years of gripping steering wheels and wrenching lug nuts. Even after 10 years of retirement, my hands still look like they are covered in grease. I earned every thread of this suit. I earned the marble floor I was standing on. I started with one rusted truck in 1975. I drove 18 hours a day. I slept in laybys. I pissed in bottles so I did not have to stop moving. I built Carter Logistics from the mud up so that my son Malik would never have to know what diesel tastes like when you are siphoning it from a tank in the freezing rain. Giovanni was talking about cufflinks. I was not listening. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a sharp vibration against my thigh. Excuse me, I said. My voice is deep. It sounds like gravel rolling in a mixer. Giovanni stepped back, looking annoyed. I pulled the phone out. It was a message from Malik. My thumb hovered over the screen. I expected a question about the rehearsal dinner, or maybe a thank you. I had signed a check for $250,000 last week to cover the venue, the catering, and the flowers. $250,000. That is $250,000 for a party. I unlocked the phone. The text was long. I read it once. Then I read it again. Hey, Dad. Look, this is hard to say. Courtney and I have been talking. We think it is best if you do not come to the ceremony or the reception tomorrow. Courtney says her parents are very traditional and your presence might make them uncomfortable. Honestly, Dad, you just do not fit the aesthetic of the wedding. We want everything to be perfect. We will send you photos after. Love you. The aesthetic. I stared at the word. Aesthetic. The silence in the tailor shop was sudden and violent. The air conditioning hummed. A clock ticked on the wall. I looked up at the mirror. I saw an old black man in a $5,000 suit that he paid for a wedding he paid for a son he paid for, and I was being told to stay away because I did not look the part. I did not feel sadness. That is the strange thing. I did not feel a tear roll down my cheek. I felt a coldness start in my stomach. It spread to my chest. It moved down my arms to those rough, scarred hands. It was the same feeling I used to get when a transmission blew out on the highway in the middle of nowhere. It was the realization that I had a problem, and I had to fix it. I remembered Malik when he was 6 years old. I remembered coming home after a 3-week haul, smelling of sweat and exhaust. He would run to me. He would hug my legs. He didn't care about the smell then. He didn't care about the aesthetic then. But then came the private schools, the schools I paid for, the schools where he was the only black kid in the class. He started to change. He started to correct my grammar. He started to ask me to drop him off a block away from the gate so his friends wouldn't see my truck. I thought I was giving him a better life. I thought I was lifting him up. I was wrong. I was just teaching him to be ashamed of me. And now, he was marrying Courtney Vance, a girl who smiled with her teeth but never with her eyes. A girl whose family lost their money in the recession but still acted like they owned the state. They treated me like the help. At the engagement dinner, Courtney's father asked me if I could help him move a sofa because I looked strong. He did not ask me about my business. He did not ask me about my life. He saw a big black man and he saw manual labor. And my son let it happen. He laughed. He wanted to fit in with them so badly that he was willing to erase me. Giovanni cleared his throat. "Mr. Carter, is everything all right? We really need to pin the waist." I looked at Giovanni. I looked at the pins in his mouth. I looked at the expensive fabric draped over my body. "It is done," I said. Giovanni blinked. "Excuse me?" "Take it off," I said. I started unbuttoning the jacket. My fingers were steady. "But sir," Giovanni stammered, "the wedding is tomorrow. We have made the adjustments. It is almost ready. You cannot find another suit in time." "I do not need a suit," I said. I took the jacket off and let it drop to the floor. It landed in a pile of blue silk. Giovanni gasped. "Mr. Carter, this is Italian silk. You cannot just—" I unbuttoned the waistcoat. I unzipped the trousers. I stripped down to my undershirt and boxers right there in the middle of the shop. I did not care. I stepped out of the trousers and kicked them aside. "I am not going to the wedding," I said. "But sir, you have already paid the deposit. You still owe the balance. If you cancel now, you still have to pay for the work." I reached into my wallet. I pulled out my black Centurion card, the heavy metal card. I threw it on the counter. "Charge it," I said. "Charge the full amount. Charge me for the time you wasted. Keep the suit. Burn it. Give it to a homeless man. I do not care. Just get me my old clothes." Giovanni scrambled to pick up my jeans and my flannel shirt from the chair. He looked terrified. He had never seen a man throw away $5,000 with a straight face. He did not understand. He thought I was angry about the fit of the trousers. He did not know he was witnessing the first stone falling from an avalanche. I dressed quickly. I pulled on my old boots. They were scuffed. They were comfortable. They were me. I walked out of the shop without looking back. The bell above the door chimed cheerfully. It was a mocking sound. I got into my truck. It was not a semi. It was a Ford F-150, 10 years old. Malik hated this truck. He wanted me to buy a Bentley. He said a man of my status should signal his wealth. I told him my status was in the bank, not on the bumper. I sat in the driver's seat. I put the phone on the dashboard. The screen was dark. I did not reply to Malik. A reply gives them power. A reply opens a negotiation. There was nothing to negotiate. I started the engine. The rumble of the V8 soothed me. I drove. I did not drive home. I drove toward the financial district. I have a private banker. His name is Mr. Henderson. He manages the Carter Family Trust. He manages the company accounts. He manages the credit cards I gave to Malik and Courtney to help them set up their new life. I drove with one hand on the wheel. My mind was a spreadsheet. I was adding up the numbers. The penthouse apartment downtown, $1.2 million. Title held by Carter Logistics. Malik lived there, rent-free. The Porsche Cayenne Courtney drove. Title held by Carter Logistics. The monthly allowance for Malik's position as Director of Marketing, a job where he did nothing but post on Instagram. $10,000 a month. The credit cards with the $50,000 limits. They were living on an island of gold, and they thought they built it. They thought the ground beneath their feet was solid. They did not know that I was the ocean, and the tide was going out. I pulled up to the bank. It was 4 p.m. The lobby was quiet. Mr. Henderson saw me coming. He stood up from his desk. He looked confused. He usually saw me in a suit, or at least a polo shirt. Today I looked like I had just come from a construction site. "Mr. Carter," he said, extending his hand, "this is a surprise. I thought you would be busy with the rehearsal dinner." I did not shake his hand. I sat down in the leather chair opposite him. "I need a full audit," I said. My voice was low. It filled the room. Mr. Henderson blinked. "An audit?" "Sir, the quarterly reports are not due for another month. Everything is in order. Not the company," I said. "The family. I want to see every transaction Malik and Courtney have made in the last 30 days. I want to see where my money is going. Right now." Mr. Henderson hesitated. He saw something in my face. He saw the look I used to give union reps when they tried to strong-arm me. He sat down and started typing. He turned the screen towards me. I watched the numbers scroll. It was worse than I thought. It was not just the wedding. It was a lifestyle of pure gluttony. $15,000 at a spa this morning. The transaction was time-stamped at 10 a.m. I looked at the time of the text message Malik sent me, 10:30 a.m. Courtney was getting a diamond facial and a massage on my credit card at the exact moment she told my son to ban me from the wedding because I did not fit the aesthetic. She was scrubbing her skin with my money while treating me like dirt. There were other charges. $800 for a bottle of wine at a tasting room an hour ago. That would be Malik and his father-in-law celebrating that they had finally cut the old man out of the picture, celebrating that the ATM machine would keep spitting out cash without the embarrassing presence of the donor. Mr. Henderson was watching me. He looked uncomfortable. "Mr. Carter, these are significant expenditures. Is everything all right?" I looked at him. "Freeze it," I said. "I beg your pardon?" "Freeze it all," I said. Every account connected to Malik Carter, every supplementary credit card issued to Courtney Vance, the joint checking account, the emergency fund, the wedding vendor payments that have not cleared yet. Cut it all off. Mr. Henderson went pale. "Sir, the wedding is tomorrow. If we freeze these assets, transactions will be declined. The vendors might walk away. This could cause significant embarrassment." "Embarrassment," I said. I tasted the word. It was bitter. They are worried about embarrassment. They are worried about aesthetics. Let us see how their aesthetic looks when the credit card machine beeps red. "But sir," Mr. Henderson tried again, "this is extreme. Are you sure?" I leaned forward. The leather of the chair creaked. "Mr. Henderson, I built this fortune hauling steel and concrete. I know the weight of things. I know what carries a load and what is just dead weight. My son has become dead weight." "Cut the line," Mr. Henderson typed. He hit the enter key. On the screen, a small dialog box appeared. Status, suspended. It was done. The flow of money, the lifeblood of their fake existence, had stopped. I stood up. I felt lighter. "Thank you, Mr. Henderson," I said. "I will see you on Monday. We have a lot of work to do." I walked out of the bank. The sun was setting. The city was turning gold and purple. It was a beautiful evening. I got back into my truck and drove to my favorite barbecue spot on the south side. It was a shack with a smoker out back, plastic chairs, paper plates. It did not fit the aesthetic of a high society wedding, but the ribs were tender and the sauce was spicy, and the people there looked me in the eye and called me Mr. Ike. I sat there, eating my ribs, wiping sauce from my chin with a paper towel. My phone was on the table. It was silent for exactly 45 minutes. Then, it lit up. It was a notification from the bank app. Transaction declined. Serenity Spa and Resort. Amount, $15,400. I took a bite of cornbread. I smiled. 5 minutes later, the phone rang. It was Malik. I let it ring. Then a text came in. "Dad, something is wrong with the card. Courtney is trying to pay the bill at the spa, and it says declined. Call the bank ASAP. It is embarrassing her." I took a sip of my sweet tea. I watched the screen fade to black. The war had started, and they did not even know they were on the battlefield yet. I drove my truck through the iron gates of my estate. The house sits on 5 acres of manicured lawn, a sprawling brick mansion that Beatrice and I built 20 years ago. It was supposed to be filled with grandchildren by now. It was supposed to be loud with family dinners and Sunday barbecues. Instead, it was silent. The windows were dark, staring back at me like hollow eyes. I parked the Ford next to my late wife's vintage Mercedes, the one I keep polished but never drive. I walked inside. The air was cool and smelled of lemon polish. I did not go to the kitchen. I did not go to the living room. I went straight to my study. This room is the heart of my empire. It smells of mahogany and old tobacco, though I quit smoking years ago. The walls are lined with framed newspaper clippings and awards. Businessman of the Year, Chamber of Commerce Lifetime Achievement. Malik used to call them my ego wall. He did not understand that they were not for my ego. They were receipts. They were proof that a man who started with nothing could build something that mattered. I sat behind my heavy oak desk. I felt the weight of 50 years of labor in my shoulders. I did not cry. Tears are for grief, and I was not grieving yet. I was calculating. I was a businessman facing a failing investment, and it was time to cut my losses. I opened the safe hidden behind the painting of the first truck I ever bought. The dial clicked under my fingers. Left, right, left. The heavy steel door swung open. Inside were the deeds, the trust documents, and the master ledger. I took them out and placed them on the desk. Then I woke up my computer. It was time for an audit. Not an IRS audit, a love audit. I logged into the master account for Carter Logistics and the Carter Family Trust. The screen filled with numbers. To most people, these were just digits. To me, they were hours of my life. They were missed birthdays because I was on the road. They were nights sleeping in a cab in freezing temperatures. They were the cartilage in my knees and the ache in my lower back. I started with the real estate. The penthouse on Fifth Avenue. I pulled up the deed. $1.2 million. I bought it 3 years ago when Malik said he needed a suitable base of operations for his marketing consulting firm. A firm that had exactly one client, me. The deed was in the company name, but Malik lived there like a king. I paid the HOA fees. I paid the property taxes. I paid the utilities. I looked at the recent utility bill. $600 for electricity in 1 month. He was running the AC at 60 degrees while I sweated out here to save a few pennies. Next, the vehicles. I clicked on the fleet management tab. There were the company trucks, the lifeblood of the business, and there, at the bottom, were the executive vehicles. A Range Rover autobiography for Malik, a Porsche Macan for Courtney, a vintage Jaguar E-Type that Malik insisted was an investment, $300,000 in rolling metal. I paid the insurance, I paid for the premium gas, I paid for the detailing service that came to their building every Friday. I scrolled down to the credit cards. This was the vein I had opened for them. The Black Centurion card. The limit was technically uncapped, but I monitored it. Or I was supposed to. I had been lax. I had been soft. Beatrice always told me I spoiled the boy because I didn't want him to struggle like I did. "You are making him weak, Ike," she would say. "You are taking away his hunger." God, she was right. I pulled up the statement for the last 30 days. It was a hemorrhage of cash. $4,000 at a Michelin star sushi restaurant, $2,000 for wardrobe consultation, $6,000 for a weekend trip to Napa Valley, and then the wedding expenses. I opened the folder marked Wedding. The contract for the grand estate was on top. I had signed it 6 months ago. The venue fee alone was $75,000. Then the catering, the florist, the band. The total was pushing $250,000. I looked at the contract for the grand estate. I knew the owner, an old military man named Colonel Patterson. I had pulled his Jeep out of a ditch during a snowstorm in '96. He gave me a discount, he said. A discount for a friend. I looked at the notes on the file. Special request, no soul food. French cuisine only. I let out a breath that rattled in my chest. Courtney had banned the food of my ancestors from the menu. No collard greens, no mac and cheese, no ribs. It wasn't aesthetic enough. I leaned back in my chair. The leather creaked. I felt like a fool. A rich, blind fool. I had built a golden cage for my son, and he had learned to love the cage and despise the hand that built it. But I needed to be sure. I needed one final nail in the coffin. I looked at the pending transactions on the black card. The system updates every few minutes. There it was. Pending. Serenity Spa and Resort. $15,400. Timestamp. 10:30 a.m. I pulled my phone out of my pocket. I opened the text message from Malik. Received. 10:30 a.m. I placed the phone next to the computer screen. I looked at the 2 times. They were identical. The rage that hit me then was not hot. It was absolute zero. At the exact moment Courtney was dictating that text to my son, at the exact moment she was telling him to ban his own father because I was too black, too working class, too unaesthetic for her precious day, she was handing my credit card to a receptionist to pay for a $15,000 spa day. She was scrubbing her pores with my money while treating me like dirt. She didn't just want me gone. She wanted me to pay for the privilege of my own erasure. I imagined them laughing. I imagined Courtney in a plush robe, sipping cucumber water, telling her friends how she handled the in-law problem. I imagined Malik nodding along, spineless, terrified of losing her, terrified of losing the lifestyle I provided. They thought I was a resource. A natural resource, like a coal mine or an oil field. You don't invite a coal mine to a wedding. You just extract what you need and leave the hole in the ground. Well, the mine just collapsed. I sat up straight. I cracked my knuckles. The sound was loud in the quiet room. I navigated to the admin panel of the bank's portal. I have master access. I own the bank, or at least enough shares of it that they gave me a special login. I selected the account ending in 4490. Malik's primary checking. Status, active. I clicked the drop-down menu. Select action, freeze account. A warning popped up. This will decline all incoming and outgoing transactions. Are you sure? I clicked yes. I selected the account ending in 8821, the joint account for household expenses. Freeze. Yes. I selected the credit card account, the black card, the card currently sitting in Courtney's purse at her bachelorette brunch. Suspend card. Reason? Stolen. I typed it in. Stolen. Because that's what it was. They were stealing from me. They were stealing my dignity. I went to the real estate holding company portal. I found the lease agreement for the penthouse. It was a $0 lease, renewable monthly at the owner's discretion. The owner was me. I drafted a quick email to my lawyer, Dante. Subject, notice to quit. Body, terminate the lease on the Fifth Avenue property effective immediately. Begin eviction proceedings. No grace period. I hit send. Then I picked up the phone and dialed a number I knew by heart. The Grand Estate Events Office, a cheerful voice answered. This is Isaiah Carter, I said. The voice changed instantly. Oh, Mr. Carter, we are so excited for tomorrow. The flowers just arrived and they look spectacular. The white roses are... Cancel it, I said. There was a pause, a long, confused silence. I'm sorry, sir, the reception is less than 24 hours away. I know what time it is, I said. I am the signatory on the contract. I am the one paying the bill. I am exercising the cancellation clause. But, sir, the deposit is non-refundable, and with such short notice, you will be liable for 70% of the total cost. I do not care about the cost, I said. Charge me. But if you open those gates tomorrow for Malik Carter and Courtney Vance, I will sue you for breach of contract. I am pulling the funding. The event is canceled. Send the staff home. Donate the food to a shelter. Do you understand? Yes, Mr. Carter, I understand. I will notify the coordinator. Do not notify anyone, I said. Let them find out when they show up at the gate. I hung up. I looked back at the computer screen. The dashboard was full of red icons. Suspended, frozen, canceled. It looked like a disaster zone. To me, it looked like a clean slate. I sat there for a moment watching the screen refresh. A notification popped up in the corner. Transaction attempted, the bridal suite. Amount, $5,000. Status, declined. They were trying to pay for the final dress fitting. Another notification. Transaction attempted, Uber Black. Amount, $45. Status, declined. They were trying to get a ride to the rehearsal dinner. I leaned back and closed my eyes. I could feel the chaos starting to ripple out from this room, moving through the fiber optic cables, hitting servers, and bouncing back to the handheld devices of two very entitled, very ungrateful people. I imagined Malik standing on a curb, staring at his phone, confused. I imagined Courtney's smile faltering as the card reader beeped that harsh, rejecting tone. I poured myself a glass of bourbon. It was cheap stuff. I liked the burn. I swirled the amber liquid in the glass. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Malik. Dad, is there something wrong with the bank? My card isn't working. I did not answer. Another buzz. Dad? Courtney's card got declined too. We need to pay the driver. Pick up, please. I took a sip of bourbon. The warmth spread through my chest. I looked at the photo of Beatrice on my desk. She was smiling, that fierce, protective smile she had when she looked at our son. I'm sorry, B, I whispered to the empty room. But he has to learn. You can't walk tall if someone else is always carrying you. I turned off the monitor. The room went dark, save for the single lamp on my desk. I sat in the silence, listening to the phone buzz and buzz and buzz like a fly trapped in a jar. The audit was complete. The accounts were balanced, and the debt was about to be collected. I was not physically present at the Serenity Spa and Resort when the world began to crumble around my future daughter-in-law, but I can picture it with the clarity of a high-definition security camera feed. I know that place well. I know the smell of eucalyptus and white tea that pumps through the vents. I know the sound of the Zen fountains trickling in the lobby. I know these things because Carter Logistics handled the shipping for their entire marble renovation 3 years ago. I know the owner. I know the manager. Her name is Elena. She is a woman who respects a contract. She is a woman who understands that billable hours must be paid. Courtney Vance was sitting in the VIP lounge wrapped in a robe that was whiter than snow. Her skin was glowing from a diamond dust exfoliation treatment that cost more than my first truck. Around her sat her bridesmaids, a gaggle of women who laughed too loud and checked their reflections in every shiny surface. They were drinking vintage champagne from crystal flutes. They were celebrating. They were not just celebrating the wedding. They were celebrating the victory. They were celebrating the text message Courtney had dictated to my son just 2 hours earlier, the text that erased me. They were laughing about how they had curated the perfect guest list, how the photos would look in the magazines without a rough-handed old truck driver ruining the visual harmony. They felt powerful. They felt untouchable. They thought they were the queens of the city sitting on a throne built of my money. Then the bill came. A young receptionist approached the group with a leather folio. She was smiling because the bill was massive, $15,400. That included the treatments, the champagne, the private room rental, and the 20% mandatory gratuity. Courtney did not even look at the total. She simply reached into her designer bag and pulled out the Black Centurion card. My card. The card that says Malik Carter on the front but draws from the deep well of Isaiah Carter's life savings. She handed it over with a dismissive wave of her hand like a queen dismissing a servant. "Put it on this," she said, "and bring us another bottle. We are not done yet." The receptionist took the card and walked to the terminal. Courtney turned back to her friends. She was in the middle of a story about how she planned to redecorate my son's penthouse office. She was going to throw out the mahogany desk I had given him and replace it with something glass and modern. Then came the sound. It is a specific sound, a sharp, dissonant beep, the sound of rejection. The receptionist frowned. She wiped the card on her apron and inserted it again. Beep. Courtney paused. She looked over her shoulder. "Is there a problem?" she asked. Her voice had that edge to it, that sharp tone she uses when the world does not immediately bend to her will. "I am sorry, Ms. Vance," the receptionist said. "The machine says declined." The room went quiet. The bridesmaids stopped laughing. "Don't be ridiculous," Courtney snapped. "That is an unlimited card. It does not have a limit. Try it again. Or maybe your machine is broken. They always have issues in these places." The receptionist tried a third time. Beep. "Transaction not authorized." Courtney huffed. She stood up, tightening her robe. "This is embarrassing," she said loud enough for the other patrons to hear. "I will use the other one." She pulled out the Platinum Visa, the backup card, the one linked to the joint checking account I funded every month for household expenses. "Run this one," she demanded, "and take off the price of the champagne for the inconvenience." The receptionist ran the Visa. Beep. Declined. Refer to issuer. Now the color began to drain from Courtney's face. That glow from the diamond facial was replaced by the pale gray of panic. 2 cards, 2 different networks, both dead. She dug through her purse. She found the emergency debit card, the one for gas and groceries. Declined. She stood there surrounded by $15,000 of consumed luxury with zero ability to pay for it. The silence in the VIP lounge was heavy. Her friends were exchanging looks. They were wondering if they would have to open their own purses. They were wondering if the golden goose was actually just a turkey. That is when the door to the office opened and Elena stepped out. Elena does not smile when there is money on the table. She walked straight to Courtney. She did not offer a mimosa. She did not offer a towel, Miss Vance, Elena said. Her voice was cool and professional. "We have a problem," Courtney tried to bluster. "Your machines are broken, Elena. You need to fix them. My father-in-law will be hearing about this incompetency. Mr. Carter has already been heard from," Elena said. Courtney froze. "What? I just received a notification from our merchant services provider," Elena said. "And I personally verified it. Mr. Isaiah Carter has reported these cards as compromised. He has flagged all activity on them as unauthorized. He has suspended the accounts." Courtney laughed, but it was a nervous, high-pitched sound. "That is impossible," she said. "Ike would never do that. He loves us. He is just confused. He is old. He probably pressed the wrong button on his phone. Just run it manually. I authorize it." "I cannot do that," Elena said. "The authorization has been revoked. The accounts are frozen. Ms. Vance, you have consumed $15,000 worth of services. You need to pay. Now." "I will have Malik call you," Courtney shouted. "This is a mistake." "You can call whoever you want," Elena said, crossing her arms. "But you are not leaving this building until the bill is settled. If you cannot provide a valid form of payment within the next 10 minutes, I will be forced to call the police. This is theft of services, Ms. Vance. And given the amount, it is a felony." The word felony hung in the air like smoke. The bridesmaids suddenly found their purses. They started mumbling about appointments they had to get to. They started backing away. Courtney Vance, the girl who cared so much about aesthetics, was now standing in a bathrobe, sweating through her makeup, facing the threat of being handcuffed, and walked out past the valet stand. 10 miles away across the city, my son Malik was sitting in a leather booth at the Reserve. It is a wine bar that charges $50 just to walk in the door. He was with his father-in-law, Mr. Robert Vance. They were doing what they always did, spending my money to pretend they were aristocracy. They had just finished a bottle of Screaming Eagle Cabernet, $800. They were discussing the wedding. They were discussing how much better it would be without me there, looming over the guests like a dark cloud. "You made the right call, son," Robert Vance said, swirling his glass. "Ike is a good man in his own way, I suppose, but he is rough. He is blue-collar. You have ascended. You belong in this world now. We have to protect the brand." Malik smiled. He loved that. He loved the idea that he had ascended. He did not realize he was just a passenger in an elevator I had built, and I had just cut the cable. "Check, please," Malik called out, snapping his fingers at the sommelier. The bill arrived, $840 with tax. Malik did not even look at it. He threw the black card onto the tray. He continued talking to his father-in-law. He was talking about the honeymoon, 2 weeks in the Maldives, first class, overwater bungalow, all paid for by the card he had just tossed on the table. The waiter returned. He was not smiling. "I am sorry, sir," the waiter said. The card was declined. Malik laughed. "Try it again. The chip is probably dusty." "We tried it 3 times, sir. It says pickup card. That means the bank wants us to confiscate it." Malik stopped laughing. "What? Give me that." He snatched the card back. He pulled out his wallet. He tried the Visa. Declined. He tried the debit card. Declined. Mr. Vance was watching him. His expression changed from paternal pride to suspicion. "Is there an issue, Malik?" "No. No, of course not," Malik stammered. "Dad probably, I don't know. Maybe the bank detected fraud because of the large transactions for the wedding. It is a security measure. That is all." His phone began to ring. It was a shrill, desperate sound in the quiet bar. He looked at the screen. It was Courtney. He answered. "Hey, babe. I am just settling up with your dad." "Malik!" Courtney screamed. Her voice was so loud Mr. Vance could hear it from across the table. "Malik, the cards are dead. All of them. I am at the spa and Elena is threatening to call the cops. She says your dad reported them stolen. She says he cut us off." Malik felt the blood drain from his face. He looked at his father-in-law. He looked at the waiter who was now standing very close to the table, looking like he was ready to tackle someone if they tried to run. "It has to be a mistake," Malik whispered into the phone. "It is not a mistake!" Courtney shrieked. "He knows, Malik. He knows about the text. Fix this. Fix it right now, or my mother is going to have to come down here and pay my bill, and if that happens, I swear to God, Malik, I will never forgive you." Malik hung up. His hands were shaking. Mr. Vance frowned. Did she say, Ike cut you off?" "It is a misunderstanding," Malik said, standing up. His legs felt weak. "I need to call him. I need to clear this up. Dad, just stay here. Robert. Can you cover the wine, just for a second?" I left my other wallet in the car. Mr. Vance looked at the bill. He looked at his son-in-law. The look of respect was gone. It was replaced by the look one gives a waiter who has spilled soup on a tuxedo. "Go fix your mess," Mr. Vance said coldly. "I will handle this. But this is humiliating." Malik ran out of the bar. He stood on the sidewalk. The city noise was loud around him, but inside his head it was screaming. He dialed my number. I was sitting on the patio of the barbecue shack. The sun was gone. The air was cooling down. I had finished my ribs. I was drinking a cold beer. It cost $4. My phone was on the plastic table. It began to vibrate. It danced across the surface, buzzing angrily. Incoming call, Malik. I looked at the name. I looked at the picture that popped up. It was a photo of him at his college graduation. I had been so proud that day. I had cried. I thought I had launched him into a better life. I did not know I had launched him into a fantasy. The phone vibrated. Buzz, buzz, buzz. I took a sip of my beer. I imagined him on the street corner, panic rising in his throat. I imagined Courtney in the spa lobby, weeping tears of rage. I reached out. My hand was steady. I did not slide the green button. I did not answer. I flipped the phone over so the screen was facing the table. The buzzing continued for another 10 seconds, muffled against the plastic. Then it stopped. Silence. I took a deep breath of the smoky air. It smelled like hickory and freedom. They were realizing now that the ATM had not just run out of cash, the ATM had unplugged itself. The ATM had walked away. I signaled the waitress. "Check, please," I said. I paid cash. I left a big tip. And then I walked to my truck ready to go home and get a good night's sleep. The wedding was tomorrow, and I had a feeling the aesthetic was about to change dramatically. The sun rose over my estate at 6:45 in the morning. It was a pale, watery light that filtered through the oak trees lining the driveway. The morning of my son's wedding. Or rather, the morning of the day he intended to get married. To anyone else, the silence of the house might have felt lonely. To me, it felt like victory. It felt like the quiet hum of an engine that has just been tuned to perfection. I was in the kitchen, wearing my old flannel bathrobe and a pair of worn leather slippers. I was making coffee. Not the fancy espresso machine Malik had insisted on buying for the kitchen counter, the one with 12 buttons and a milk frother I never used. I was using my old French press. I ground the beans myself. The smell of dark roast filled the air, rich and earthy. It smelled like reality. I took my mug and walked to the front window. I knew they were coming. I did not need a crystal ball. I knew the nature of the beast I was dealing with. When you cut off the food supply to a parasite, it does not just quietly detach and die. It writhes, it screams, it comes looking for the host. At 7:15, the silence shattered. I heard the roar of an engine before I saw the car. It was the Range Rover. Malik was driving it like he was fleeing a crime scene. He took the curve of the driveway too fast, tires screeching against the asphalt, kicking up gravel onto the pristine lawn. He slammed on the brakes right in front of the front steps. The doors flew open. Courtney got out first. She was not wearing a bridal glow. She was wearing a pair of designer sweatpants and a t-shirt that looked like she had slept in it. Her hair, usually sprayed into a helmet of perfection, was pulled back in a messy knot. Her face was bare, and it was twisted into a mask of pure, unadulterated fury. Malik followed her. He looked like a man who had not slept in a week. His eyes were wide and frantic. He was holding his phone in one hand and his wallet in the other, as if presenting evidence to a jury. They did not knock. They pounded. The heavy oak door shook in its frame, fist against wood. Thud, thud, thud. "Open the door!" Courtney screamed. Her voice was shrill, cutting through the thick wood like a circular saw. "Open this door right now, Isaiah! I know you are in there!" I took a sip of my coffee. It was hot. It burned my tongue pleasantly. I waited. Let them pound. Let them bruise their knuckles. I wanted them to feel the solidity of the house they thought was theirs. I wanted them to realize that this structure, like everything else in their lives, stood only because I allowed it to stand. Malik's voice joined hers. Dad, this is insane. We need to talk. Open up." I walked slowly to the foyer. I did not hurry. I unlocked the deadbolt with a loud, deliberate click. I turned the handle and pulled the door open. They practically fell inside. The energy radiating off them was toxic. Panic, entitlement, and rage, all mixed into a poisonous cocktail. Courtney lunged toward me, her finger pointing in my face. Her acrylic nail was an inch from my nose. "What the hell are you doing?" she shrieked. Her eyes were bulging. "You old lunatic! Do you have any idea what you have done? You humiliated me. You humiliated us." I stood my ground. I did not blink. I took another sip of coffee. "Good morning," I said. My voice was calm, low, the voice of a man who owns the ground he stands on. "Fix it!" Courtney yelled. She was shaking, literally vibrating with anger. "Turn them back on. The cards, the accounts, everything. I am supposed to be getting my hair done right now. The makeup artist is waiting for a deposit transfer. The venue coordinator is calling me saying the check bounced. Do you hear me? You are ruining my day." Malik stepped up beside her. He tried to look authoritative, but he just looked like a scared boy in a man's body. "Dad, look, this has gone too far. You made your point, okay? You are mad about the text. We get it. But you cannot just nuke our lives. You have to fix this. Now." I looked at my son. I looked at the dark circles under his eyes. I looked at the expensive watch on his wrist that I had bought him for his 30th birthday. "I do not have to do anything," I said. Courtney let out a sound of frustration, a guttural growl. "You senile old man," she shouted. "Who do you think you are? You cannot treat us like this. That is our money. We have contracts. We have guests flying in from Paris. Do you know how bad this makes us look?" I looked at her. I really looked at her. I saw the greed etched into the lines around her mouth. I saw the absolute lack of love in her eyes. Your money? I asked. I tilted my head. I was under the impression that it was my money. The money I earned hauling steel across state lines while you were still learning how to tie your shoes. It was a gift, Malik shouted. Malik, you gave it to us. That makes it ours. You cannot just take it back because your feelings are hurt. My feelings are not hurt, I said. My feelings are clarified. Courtney stepped closer. She grabbed the lapel of my bathrobe. It was a mistake. I looked down at her hand. My gaze was heavy. She let go as if the fabric had burned her. Listen to me, Ike, she hissed. You are going to pick up that phone. You are going to call the bank. You are going to tell them it was a mistake. And you are going to wire an extra $50,000 to my account for the emotional distress you caused me at the spa yesterday. Do you understand? If you don't, you will never see your son again. We will cut you out completely. I laughed. It was a dry, rasping sound. You will cut me out? I asked. I thought that was the plan already. I thought I did not fit the aesthetic. Courtney froze. Her face went pale, then red again. That was different, she argued. That was just for the ceremony. We were trying to protect the brand, but you were still supposed to pay for it. That is your job. You are the father. That is what fathers do. No, I said. That is what fools do. And I am done being a fool. I took a step forward. They took a step back. I used my size then. I let them feel the looming presence of a man who has moved mountains with his bare hands. You wanted a wedding without me? I said. You wanted a life that looked perfect in pictures but had no room for the man who paid for the frame. You told me I made your family uncomfortable. You told me I was not good enough to stand in the room while you said your vows. I paused. I let the silence hang there, heavy and suffocating. Well, I figured if I do not fit the aesthetic, my money probably does not fit either. My money is dirty, Courtney. It smells like diesel fuel and sweat. It comes from hard work. It is not elegant. It is not refined. It surely does not belong at a wedding where soul food is banned and fathers are hidden away like dirty secrets. Malik's face crumpled. Dad, please, don't do this. We can put you at a table in the back. We can let you come to the cocktail hour. Just turn the money back on, please. The catering manager is threatening to leave. A table in the back. The words hung in the air. Even now, begging for his life, he was negotiating my dignity. He was offering me scraps from the table I bought. Get out, I said. What? Courtney gasped. Get off my property, I said. I am done. The accounts are closed. The lease on the penthouse is terminated. The cars are being repossessed on Monday. You are on your own. You can't do that, Courtney screamed. We have rights. That apartment is our home. It is corporate housing, I said. And you are no longer affiliated with the corporation. Courtney looked at Malik. Do something, she shrieked. He is destroying us. Malik looked at me. His eyes were full of tears, but they were tears of self-pity, not remorse. He did not see a father teaching a lesson. He saw a vending machine that had stolen his dollar. Dad, stop it, Malik said. His voice dropped to a low, threatening tone. If you do this, if you ruin this wedding, I swear to God you will regret it. Is that a threat, son? I asked. It is a promise, Malik spat. You are old, Dad. You are 73 years old. You are going to get sick one day. You are going to need help. You are going to need family. And when that day comes, do not call us, because we won't be there. You need me more than I need you. You have no one else. You are going to die alone in this big empty house, and I hope you think about this moment when you take your last breath. The words were meant to hurt. They were meant to terrify me. The fear of dying alone is a powerful weapon to use against an old man. But as I looked at him, this soft, entitled stranger wearing my son's face, I realized something. I was already alone. I had been alone for years, even when they were in the room. Their love was a transaction. Their presence was a billable hour. I would rather die alone in silence than live surrounded by vultures waiting for me to fall. I looked Malik in the eye. I saw the weakness there. I saw the fear behind the threat. Get out, I said again. I stepped back and grabbed the heavy brass handle of the door. Courtney tried to rush forward again, to jam her foot in the door, to scream more demands, but Malik grabbed her arm. He saw the look on my face. He knew that physical force was a line he did not want to cross with me. Let's go, Malik said, pulling her back. He has lost his mind. We will call a lawyer. We will sue him for everything he has." "Sue me?" I laughed. "With what money?" I slammed the door. The sound was like a gunshot. It echoed through this foyer, up the stairs, and into the rafters. It was a final, definitive sound. I locked the deadbolt. Click. I stood there for a moment, staring at the wood grain of the door. I could hear them screaming outside. I heard Courtney kicking the door with her expensive sneaker. I heard Malik cursing. I heard the Range Rover start up and peel away, gravel spraying against the front of the house. Then, silence returned. My coffee was still warm. I lifted the mug to my lips and took a sip. My hand was steady. My heart was beating a slow, calm rhythm. They thought they had threatened me. They thought they had scared me. They did not understand. They had just set me free. I walked back to the kitchen to pour another cup. The wedding was supposed to start in 4 hours. I had a feeling the fireworks were just beginning. And for the first time in years, I was looking forward to the show. 2 in the afternoon. The sun was high and bright, a perfect golden hour for photography, exactly as Courtney had planned. The grand estate sits on a hill overlooking the valley, a sprawling manor of white stone and manicured ivy that screams old money. It is the kind of place where the grass is cut with scissors and the air smells of jasmine and exclusivity. To get married, there is a statement. It says, "You have arrived." It says, "You are part of the elite." But there is something Courtney Vance and her parents, Robert and Evelyn, did not know about the grand estate. They did not know the man who owns it. Colonel Patterson is a man of honor, a man of iron and grit, much like myself. They saw a venue owner. I saw a brother in arms, though our wars were different. Back in 1990, on a stretch of black ice on Interstate 80, a sedan lost control and slid under the trailer of a jackknifed rig. The driver was trapped, the cabin crushed, fuel leaking onto the freezing asphalt. I was the one who pulled over. I was the one who used a crowbar and the strength of my back to pry that door open before the spark hit the fumes. I pulled a man out of the wreckage, his face bloody, his leg shattered. That man was Patterson. He never forgot the grip of my hand on his jacket. He never forgot that I stayed with him until the paramedics came, keeping him awake, keeping him alive. When I called him yesterday, I did not have to beg. I did not have to threaten. I simply told him the truth. I told him my son was disrespecting the man who paid the bills. I told him I was pulling the plug. Patterson said one thing: "Say no more, Ike. The gates stay shut." And so, at 2 o'clock on the day of the wedding of the century, the first guests began to arrive. These were the A-listers Courtney had fought so hard to invite. The local politicians, the socialites, the people whose approval she craved like a drug. They drove up the winding private road in their Bentleys and Mercedes, expecting champagne valets and a string quartet. Instead, they found a wall of iron. The massive wrought iron gates, usually thrown wide open to welcome the wealthy, were locked tight. A heavy chain and padlock secured them. Standing in front of the gate was not a valet in a white jacket. It was Marcus, Patterson's head of security, a former Marine who stood 6'4" and looked like he was carved out of granite. I was not there, but I know how it unfolded. My lawyer, Dante, had sent an associate to observe from a distance to document the breach of contract claims that were sure to fly. He sent me the updates in real time. The line of luxury cars began to back up. Horns honked. Confused drivers rolled down windows. Then came the Vance family. Robert and Evelyn arrived in a rented limousine, trying to project the image of dynastic wealth they lost years ago. They stepped out onto the dusty road, indignant. Robert adjusted his tuxedo, his face flushing red. Evelyn smoothed her silk dress, looking around nervously at the stalled cars. "Do you know who we are?" Robert shouted at Marcus, marching up to the gate. "This is the Vance-Carter wedding. Open this gate immediately. We have guests waiting. This is unacceptable." Marcus did not flinch. He did not blink. He held a clipboard in his hand. He looked at it, then looked at Robert. "The event is canceled," Marcus said. His voice was a flat baritone that carried over the idling engines. "Canceled?" Evelyn shrieked. She rushed forward, her heels wobbling on the gravel. "You cannot cancel a wedding. The flowers are inside. The cake is inside. My daughter is on her way. Open it." "The contract has been voided," Marcus said, loud enough for the drivers in the first 3 cars to hear. "The primary payer exercised the cancellation clause yesterday afternoon. The deposit has been withdrawn. The venue is closed. The primary payer." The words hung in the hot afternoon air. Everyone knew who the primary payer was. Everyone knew Robert Vance had not paid for a thing in 10 years. The whisper started in the front cars and rippled back through the line. Isaiah Carter canceled it. The groom's father pulled the money. Robert tried to bluster. He tried to use the only currency he had left, his arrogance. "Listen to me, you rent-a-cop," he spat, grabbing the iron bars. "I am Robert Vance. I am a personal friend of the colonel. If you do not open this gate right now, I will have your job. I will sue this place into the ground." Marcus took one step forward. He was on the other side of the bars, but his presence was enough to make Robert let go and stumble back. "The colonel is aware of the situation," Marcus said. "He sends his regards to Mr. Carter. He says to tell you that in this house, loyalty currency spends better than Vance currency. Now move your vehicle, you are blocking a private road." That is when the phones came out. It started with the younger guests, the influencers Courtney had invited to boost the wedding's visibility. They saw the drama. They saw the closed gates. They saw the bride's parents screaming at a security guard. They smelled blood. Smartphones went up. Live streams started. The hashtags changed from hashtag Vance Carter Wedding to hashtag Wedding Disaster. The aesthetic Courtney had carefully curated was disintegrating into a viral moment of pure humiliation. And then, the bride arrived. The white Rolls-Royce, rented for $3,000 an hour on a credit card that was already maxed out, pulled up onto the shoulder, bypassing the line of cars. The driver looked annoyed. He had probably tried to run the card for the final payment and gotten a decline code. The back door opened. Courtney stepped out. She was wearing the dress, a Vera Wang custom gown. Strapless, layers of tulle and silk, a masterpiece of fashion. It cost $12,000. I knew this because I had seen the invoice on my desk during the audit. I also knew that the final installment of $6,000 was due upon delivery this morning. Since the accounts were frozen, she must have bullied the shop into letting her take it. Or perhaps Malik had pawned his watch. She looked frantic. Her makeup was perfect, but her eyes were wild. She saw the closed gates. She saw her parents arguing with a stone-faced Marine. She saw her guests pointing phones at her. "What is happening?" she screamed. "Why are we outside? Why aren't they inside?" She ran toward the gate, the heavy dress dragging in the dust and gravel of the road. The pristine white hem turned gray and brown with every step. Malik scrambled out of the car behind her. He looked small. He looked defeated. He was wearing a tuxedo that fit him well, but he wore it like a costume. Robert turned to his daughter. His face was purple. "That bastard Ike!" he roared. "He canceled it! He called Patterson and shut us out. He killed the wedding, Courtney." Courtney stopped. She grabbed the iron bars of the gate, her knuckles white. She shook them, a futile, childish gesture against tons of steel. "No," she wailed. "No, he can't. It's my day. Open the gate. Let me in." "Ma'am, step back," Marcus said calmly. "Let me in," Courtney screamed, her voice cracking. "Do you know how much this dress cost? Do you know who I am?" "You are trespassing," Marcus said. "Turn around." Courtney spun around. She looked at the crowd. She saw the phones. She saw the pity and the amusement in the eyes of the people she wanted to impress. The aesthetic was ruined. The illusion was shattered. She wasn't a princess in a castle. She was a girl in a dirty dress standing on the side of the road, locked out of the kingdom. She turned her rage on the only target left. She lunged at Malik. She shoved him hard in the chest. He stumbled back, almost tripping over her train. "This is your fault," she shrieked. "You useless, spineless coward! You said you handled him. You said he would pay. You said he was just a stupid old man we could use." Malik tried to grab her hands. "Courtney, stop! People are watching." "Let them watch," she yelled, tearing away from him. "Let them see what a failure you are. You can't even open a gate. You can't even pay for a party. What kind of man are you? You are nothing without your daddy's checkbook. Nothing." The guests went silent. The only sound was the wind in the trees and the clicking of shutters. Courtney Vance, the girl who didn't want to meet me because I made her uncomfortable, was now providing the most uncomfortable spectacle of the season. She was tearing her husband apart before they had even said "I do." She grabbed the skirt of her dress, the unpaid Vera Wang, and ripped a layer of tulle in her fury. The sound of tearing fabric was loud and crisp. "Fix this," she sobbed, mascara starting to run, ruining the perfection. "Fix it, Malik! Get me inside or I swear I will leave you right here on this dirt road." Malik looked at her, then he looked at the gate, then he looked at his phone, which he knew was useless. He looked at the closed fortress of the Grand Estate. He realized then that there was no fixing this. The bridge wasn't just burned. The foundation had been dynamited. I sat in my study, miles away. My phone pinged. It was a message from Dante's associate, a video file. I watched Courtney screaming at the gate. I watched Malik standing with his head bowed. I watched the Vance family crumbling under the weight of their own entitlement. I took a sip of my coffee. Colonel Patterson had held the line. The perimeter was secure. I typed a text message to Malik. I didn't send it yet. I just typed it out, looking at the words. "It looks like you don't fit the aesthetic either, son." I deleted it. Silence was louder. Silence was the heavy hand of authority. The venue had vanished. The stage was gone. Now, they were just actors without a script, improvising their own destruction in the middle of a dusty road, and the audience was eating it up. The convoy of shame left the iron gates of the grand estate and wound its way down the hill like a funeral procession for dignity. Leading the pack was the white Rolls-Royce, its tires dusty, its passengers silent. Behind them came the Bentleys and the Mercedes of the guests who had decided to stick around, mostly out of morbid curiosity. They wanted to see how this train wreck ended. They were not disappointed. The destination was the Vance family home in the suburbs. It was a large house, a McMansion built in the early 2000s with cheap materials and grandiose columns that held up nothing. From the street, it looked impressive to the untrained eye. Up close, you could see the peeling paint on the window frames and the weeds cracking through the driveway pavement. It was a house bought on credit, maintained on debt, and currently housing a family that was spiritually and financially bankrupt. I was not there to see them pull in, but I can imagine the scene. Robert Vance trying to direct traffic in his tuxedo, sweating through his shirt. Evelyn Vance trying to herd the guests into the backyard, apologizing for the change of venue, lying through her teeth about a plumbing emergency at the estate. Courtney sat in the car for 10 minutes, refusing to get out, her $12,000 dress filling the back seat like a cloud of white tulle that had turned gray at the edges. They moved the party to the backyard. It was a patch of dying grass with a swimming pool that had not been cleaned in weeks. There were no white roses. There were no crystal chandeliers. There were just a few rusted patio chairs and a folding table Robert dragged out of the garage. The guests stood around awkwardly. These were people used to air conditioning and waiter service. Now they were standing in the heat, batting away flies, looking at a green pool. The murmuring started immediately. The influencers were already typing on their phones, their thumbs moving fast, documenting the fall of the House of Vance. But the real problem was not the furniture. It was the food. A wedding reception is essentially a promise of dinner. You dress up, you bring a gift, and you get fed. The guests had been promised a 5-course French meal with filet mignon and lobster. What they had was nothing. The catering trucks had turned around at the gates of the grand estate. The chefs had packed up their knives. The food was gone. It was 4 o'clock. People were hungry. The open bar at the estate never happened, so they were sober, hungry, and irritated. Courtney stormed into the kitchen, her dress rustling loudly. "Where is the food?" she screamed at her mother. "People are starving! Go get the food!" "We can't," Evelyn hissed, checking the window to make sure no guests were looking in. "The caterer won't deliver here without full payment up front. They said the contract is void." "Then pay them," Courtney yelled. "Use your card." "It is maxed out," Robert said, leaning against the counter, looking defeated. I tried 3 different cards. They are all dead." Courtney looked at her parents with pure hatred. "You are useless," she spat. "Both of you. You said you had money stashed away. You said you had investments." "We spent it on the engagement party," Evelyn cried. "We spent it keeping up appearances for you." Courtney turned to Malik. He was standing in the corner, staring at the floor. "Fix this," she said. Her voice was low and dangerous. "Call him." Malik looked up. "Call who?" "Call your father," she said. "Call him and beg. Tell him we are sorry. Tell him I am pregnant. Tell him anything. Just get him to open the accounts for 1 hour. We need food. We need alcohol. Or this mob outside is going to tear us apart." "I am not lying about a baby," Malik said quietly. "Then tell him the truth," Courtney shrieked. "Tell him we are desperate. Do it." Malik pulled his phone out of his pocket. His hand was shaking. He looked at the screen. He looked at his wife, whose face was twisted into a snarl. He looked at his in-laws, who were watching him like hungry wolves. He dialed. I was sitting at Big T's Smokehouse. It is a roadside shack about 10 miles from my estate. The tables are picnic benches covered in red checkered plastic. The napkins are rolls of paper towels. The air smells of hickory smoke and slow-cooked pork. It is the kind of place where you don't need a reservation, you just need an appetite. I was sitting with Frank and Earl. Frank is a retired mechanic. Earl used to drive a flatbed for me back in the 80s. We were eating rib tips and coleslaw. We were laughing about the time Earl tried to back a 53-foot trailer into a space the size of a postage stamp. My phone rang. The screen lit up on the table. Malik. Frank looked at it. "That the boy?" he asked. I nodded. I picked up a rib tip and took a bite. The meat fell off the bone. "He is calling a lot today," Earl said. "Must miss his daddy." "He misses my wallet," I said. I wiped my fingers on a paper towel. I picked up the phone. I did not answer immediately. I let it ring 4 times. I wanted him to sweat. I wanted him to feel the silence. Then I slid the button. "Hello?" I said. "Dad?" Malik's voice was breathless. He sounded like he had been running. "Dad, thank God you picked up." I did not say anything. I just listened to his breathing. "Dad, look, I know you are angry," Malik said. His voice was trembling. "I know we messed up. We messed up bad. The text message. It was stupid. We should have never sent it. Courtney is sorry. We are all sorry." I took a sip of my iced tea. "But Dad, we are in a bad spot here," Malik continued, his voice dropping to a whisper. "We are at the Vance's house. The guests are here, but we have no food. The caterers left. Everyone is hungry. It is a disaster." "Is that so?" I asked. "Yes," Malik said. "Please, Dad, just for today. Just open the card for 1 hour. Let us order food. Let us get some drinks. I promise. Tomorrow we will sit down and talk about everything. I will listen to whatever you want to say. Just don't let us starve in front of these people. Please." I looked around the table at Big T's. I looked at Frank, with barbecue sauce in his gray beard. I looked at Earl, his face lined with years of hard work and honest living. These men had been with me when I had nothing. They had shared sandwiches with me in the cab of a truck. They had loaned me money when the bank wouldn't. They respected me not because of what I could buy them, but because of who I was. "I am busy, Malik," I said. Busy?" Malik sounded confused. "Busy doing what?" "I am eating dinner," I said. "Dinner? Where? Are you at the club?" "No," I said. "I am at Big T's. I am eating rib tips with Frank and Earl." There was a silence on the line. I could almost hear his brain trying to process this. He was at a failed society wedding with hungry socialites, and I was eating $10 barbecue with old truckers. "Dad, please," Malik begged. "Leave them. Come here, or just call the bank. You don't even have to come, just send the money." I looked at Frank. He winked at me. "I cannot do that, son," I said. "Why not?" Malik cried. "Why are you doing this to me?" "Because I am dining with people who respect me," I said. I let the words hang there. "I am eating with men who never asked me to hide," I continued. "Men who never told me I didn't fit their aesthetic. Men who know the value of $1 and the value of a friend. You chose your table, Malik. You chose the Vances. You chose the aesthetic. Now you have to eat what is served at that table." "But nothing is being served," Malik shouted. "There is no food." "Then you have a problem," I said. "But it is not my problem. Enjoy your evening." I hung up. I put the phone face down on the table. Frank looked at me. "Tough love?" "Overdue love," I said. Back at the Vance house, the situation was deteriorating rapidly. Malik walked back into the kitchen. His face was pale. Courtney looked at him, and she knew. She saw the empty hands. She saw the defeat. "He said no?" she whispered. "He said he is eating barbecue," Malik said, his voice hollow. "He said he is with people who respect him." Courtney let out a scream of frustration that made the guests in the backyard turn their heads. She grabbed a vase from the counter and threw it against the wall. It shattered. The guests were starting to leave. The important ones, the politicians and the business owners, were checking their watches and slipping out the side gate. They had seen enough. They knew a sinking ship when they saw one. "We have to feed them," Evelyn said, wringing her hands. "If they leave hungry, we are ruined socially. We will be the laughingstock of the club." Robert checked his wallet. I have $60 cash, he said. I have 40, Malik said. Courtney dumped her purse on the counter. She had a $120, to feed 50 people. There was only one option. It was the nuclear option of wedding catering. It was the final surrender of dignity. Order the pizzas, Courtney said. Her voice was dead. Pizzas? Evelyn gasped. Courtney, we cannot serve pizza at a formal wedding. Do we have a choice? Courtney snapped. Order them. Order as many as you can get for $100. 30 minutes later, the delivery driver pulled up to the Vance house. It was a teenager in a beat-up Honda Civic with a Domino's sign on the roof. He walked up the driveway carrying a stack of 10 cardboard boxes. The smell of pepperoni and cheap cheese wafted over the yard, clashing with the expensive perfumes of the remaining guests. He walked past the white Rolls-Royce. He walked past the guests in their tuxedos and gowns. He walked right up to the bride in her $12,000 Vera Wang dress. That will be $118.50, the driver said. Malik handed him the crumpled bills. He did not tip. He couldn't afford to. Courtney took a box. She opened it. It was pepperoni. Grease stains were already soaking through the cardboard. She looked at the pizza. She looked at her guests. She looked at the wreckage of her perfect day. Someone laughed. It was a young woman near the pool, a friend of Courtney's from college. She had her phone out. She snapped a picture. Within seconds, it was on Instagram. The photo showed Courtney holding the pizza box, looking like a deer in headlights, with the caption, #wedding goals when the budget runs out before the bride arrives. #pizza wedding. #Vance disaster. The notification pinged on phones all over the yard. People looked at their screens, then looked at Courtney. The giggling started, then the whispers. Did you hear? His dad cut them off. I heard the checks bounced. Look at her dress. It's ruined. Courtney dropped the pizza box. It landed upside down on the grass. She burst into tears, ugly, heaving sobs that shook her entire body. She ran into the house, her heels sinking into the dirt, the train of her dress collecting leaves and twigs. Malik stood there alone. He looked at the pizza boxes stacked on the folding table. He looked at the guests who were now openly laughing and grabbing slices, treating the wedding like a frat party. He realized then that hunger wasn't the worst thing that could happen to a man. The worst thing was being full of pride and having nothing to swallow but shame. I finished my ribs. I paid the bill at Big T's. I left a $50 tip for the waitress. She smiled and hugged me. Thank you, Mr. Ike, she said. You are a good man. I walked to my truck. I felt full. I felt calm. I checked my phone one last time. There was a new photo trending on local social media. It was my son, eating a slice of pizza, standing alone in a backyard that looked like a garbage dump. I did not smile. It is not a happy thing to see your child fall. But sometimes, gravity is the only teacher that gets through. I started the truck and drove home to my quiet, empty, paid-for house. The silence was waiting for me. And for the first time in a long time, it felt like peace. The sun had gone down over the Vance family backyard, leaving behind a humid, sticky twilight. The pizza boxes were stacked high on the folding tables, grease soaking through the cardboard like a stain on a silk dress. The flies had mostly gone, but the mosquitoes were out feasting on the exposed skin of the few guests who had remained. It was a pathetic scene. A wedding reception that looked more like the aftermath of a natural disaster. I was sitting in my study at home. The house was quiet. The air conditioning hummed a low, steady note. I had finished my ribs. I had driven home in silence. I was not angry anymore. I was in a state of cold clarity. I was waiting. I knew the night was not over. When you strip away the money and the pretension from people like the Vances, you do not find humility. You find rot, and rot always smells eventually. My phone buzzed on the mahogany desk. It was not a call. It was a video message. The sender was Darius. Darius has known Malik since they were in diapers. I used to drive Darius's father to dialysis treatments on my days off. Darius is a good man. He is an engineer now. He was the best man at the wedding, or he was supposed to be, until Courtney demoted him to a groomsman because she said he was not tall enough for the pictures. Malik had let it happen. But Darius had stayed. He had stayed through the locked gates. He had stayed through the pizza. He was loyal. I picked up the phone. I pressed play. The video was shaky at first, shot from below waist level, like Darius was holding the phone casually at his side. The audio was loud and distorted. There was the sound of crickets and the clink of glass bottles. The camera panned up. It focused on the patio. Robert and Evelyn Vance were sitting on the rusted lawn chairs. They had found alcohol. It was not the Screaming Eagle Cabernet. It looked like a jug of cheap red wine they had dug out of a cupboard. Their faces were flushed. Their eyes were glassy. They were drunk. Not happy drunk. Mean drunk. The kind of drunk that peels back the skin and shows you the bone. Courtney was standing near them, still in her ruined Vera Wang dress. She was picking toppings off a slice of cold pizza, looking at the ground. Malik was sitting on the edge of the empty pool, his back to them, his head in his hands. Robert Vance slammed his plastic cup down on the table. "It is criminal," he slurred. His voice was loud, cutting through the quiet suburban night. "It is absolutely criminal to leave us like this, to leave his own son like this. He is a savage," Evelyn spat. She wiped her mouth with the back of her hand, smearing lipstick across her cheek. "That is what he is. A savage. You can put a tuxedo on a trucker, but he is still just a trucker. He does not know how to behave in civilized society." I watched the video. I watched my son. He did not move. He did not turn around. He sat there and let them speak. Robert laughed. It was a wet, ugly sound. "We should have known better," he said. "We tried to elevate them. We tried to bring them into our world. We gave that boy our daughter, a Vance woman, and this is how they repay us? By cutting off the money? By counting pennies like some stingy ghetto trash." I felt a muscle jump in my jaw. Ghetto trash. I built an empire. I employed hundreds of people. I sent my son to the best schools in the country, and to this man who had never worked a hard day in his life, who had squandered his inheritance on bad investments and vanity, I was just trash with a checkbook. But Robert was not done. He leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "You know what the problem is, Evelyn?" he asked. "The problem is that he forgot his place. He forgot who he is. He thinks because he has a big house and a black card, he is one of us. But he is not. He is just a nigger with a lottery ticket." The word hit the microphone like a physical blow. It hung in the air, heavy and toxic. In the video, Darius gasped softly. The camera shook. I looked at Malik. He flinched. I saw his shoulders stiffen. I saw his head snap up. That was the moment. That was the test. A man insults your father. A man uses that word to describe the man who gave you life. You do not sit. You do not stay silent. You burn the world down. I waited. I watched the screen, praying to a God I hadn't spoken to in years. "Stand up, son. Stand up and end this." Malik turned around. He looked at Robert. His face was pale. "Robert?" Malik said. His voice was weak, trembling. "That is... you can't say that. That is my dad." Robert sneered. "Oh, shut up, Malik. Stop whining. He ruined your wedding. He humiliated your wife. He is a stingy old bastard and you know it. If he loved you, he would have paid. He is trying to control you. He is trying to keep you down in the dirt with him. You need to choose whose side you are on. Are you a Carter, or are you going to step up and be a man worthy of my daughter?" Malik looked at Robert. Then he looked at Courtney. Courtney was the key. She was his wife. She was the woman he loved. Surely she would stop this. Surely she would tell her father he had gone too far. Courtney looked up from her pizza. She looked at her husband. Her eyes were cold. Dead. "My dad is drunk, Malik," she said, shrugging. "But he is not wrong about the money. Your dad is using his money to abuse us. He is a tyrant, and honestly, if he is going to act like an animal, maybe he deserves to be called one." Malik stared at her. His mouth opened slightly. He did not scream. He did not flip the table. He did not punch Robert Vance in his soft, drunk jaw. He looked down. He looked at his shoes. "Okay," he whispered. Can we stop talking about it? Please?" The video ended. The screen went black. I sat in my study. The silence was absolute. I felt a coldness in my chest that was deeper than anger. It was the death of hope. I had spent my life protecting that boy. I had shielded him from the racism of the world. I had built walls of money around him so he would never have to hear that word used against him, so he would never have to feel less than. And he had just sat there and swallowed it. He had let them call me a slur, and he had asked them to please stop talking because he didn't want to make a scene. He had chosen his comfort over my honor. He had chosen the woman who called me an animal over the father who would have died for him. I picked up my phone. My hands were steady now. The shaking was gone. I saved the video. I opened a new message to Malik. I did not write a long paragraph. I did not lecture him. I did not tell him how much he had hurt me. He did not deserve my pain. He did not deserve my words. I attached the video file. Then I typed one line. This is the family you chose over me. Bon appetit. I hit send. 10 miles away in the backyard of the Vance house, Malik's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out. He saw my name. His heart probably skipped a beat. He probably thought I was finally breaking. He probably thought I was sending the money, transferring the funds, apologizing for being a stubborn old man. He opened the message. He saw the video thumbnail. It was a still image of Robert Vance's red, sweating face, his mouth open in mid-slur. Malik pressed play. He watched it. He watched himself sitting on the edge of the pool. He heard the slur again, recorded in high definition. He heard his wife call me an animal. He heard his own pathetic whisper asking them to stop. He watched himself do nothing. He looked up from the phone. The backyard was dark now, lit only by a few citronella candles. Robert was pouring another glass of wine, his hands shaking, spilling red liquid on the plastic table. Evelyn was complaining about the mosquitoes. Courtney was sitting opposite him. She was scrolling through Instagram, deleting comments, blocking people trying to scrub the internet of the pizza photos. She looked up and saw him watching her. "What?" she snapped. "Why are you looking at me like that? Did he send the money?" Malik looked at her. Really looked at her. For the first time in 3 years, he did not see the prize he had won. He did not see the aesthetic. He saw a woman in a dirty dress sitting in a dirty backyard eating cold pepperoni pizza. He saw a woman who had stood by while her father called his father a racial slur and had nodded in agreement. He looked at Robert Vance, the man he had tried so hard to impress. The man he had bought an $800 bottle of wine for just hours ago. He saw a drunk bigot sitting on a rusted chair, king of a kingdom of dust. Malik looked down at his phone again. He read my message. Bon appetit. He felt a wave of nausea roll through him. He realized then that he was not dining at the high table. He was eating scraps from the floor, and he had paid for the privilege with his soul. He stood up. His legs felt heavy. "Where are you going?" Courtney asked. "Sit down. We need to figure out where we are sleeping tonight. The hotels are all booked because of the convention." Malik did not answer. He started walking. He walked past the pool. He walked past his in-laws. He walked toward the side gate. "Malik!" Courtney yelled. "Get back here! Do not walk away from me!" He kept walking. He walked out of the gate and onto the street. He did not know where he was going. He had no car. He had no money. He had no cards. He just knew he had to get away from the smell of that backyard, the smell of cheap wine and cheaper people. He walked down the suburban street, the darkness swallowing him. His phone buzzed again in his hand. He looked at it. It was a notification from the Uber app. "Payment method invalid. Please update." He laughed, a short, choked sound. He was walking, just like his grandfather had walked, just like I had walked before I bought my first truck. He was starting from zero, and for the first time in his life, he was starting alone. I sat in my study and watched the delivered receipt on the text message turn to read. I closed my eyes. I did not feel joy. I felt the heavy satisfaction of a man who has finally put a sick animal out of its misery. The cord was cut. The boy was gone. Now we would see if a man could rise from the ashes, or if he would just burn. The night of the wedding, Malik and Courtney slept at the Motel 6 off Interstate 95. It was the only place Malik could afford with the $87 he had managed to scrounge from his wallet and the center console of his car. The honeymoon suite at the Ritz-Carlton had canceled their reservation when the deposit check bounced. So instead of Egyptian cotton sheets and room service, they had polyester and a vending machine. I imagine it was a quiet night, the kind of quiet where you can hear the ice machine humming down the hall and the sound of your own life falling apart. Sunday morning, they woke up early. They were tired. They were angry. But they were still clinging to one piece of hope. The penthouse. The penthouse on Fifth Avenue was their castle. It was a 3-bedroom duplex with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the skyline. It had a private elevator, a chef's kitchen, and a terrace larger than most people's apartments. Malik had told everyone he bought it. He told Courtney it was his bachelor pad. In reality, it was a corporate asset of Carter Logistics listed under executive housing. I bought it as an investment. I let Malik live there because I wanted him to be comfortable. I wanted him to feel successful. I never signed a lease with him. I never asked for rent. It was a handshake agreement between a father and son. But handshakes only work when both hands are clean. At 10 a.m., the white Rolls-Royce, which the driver had mercifully not repossessed yet, only because he hadn't been able to locate Malik in the chaos of the day before, pulled up to the curb of the building. Malik and Courtney stepped out. They were still wearing their wedding clothes. The tuxedo was wrinkled. The Vera Wang dress was stained with grass and pizza grease. They looked like the survivors of a shipwreck washing up on the shore of their former life. They walked into the lobby. The doorman Henry looked up. Henry is a good man. He has worked there for 20 years. He knows everyone. He knew me. Henry did not smile. He did not open the door for them. He stood behind his podium, his face unreadable. "Good morning, Henry," Malik said, trying to sound casual, trying to pretend he wasn't wearing a day-old tuxedo. Henry nodded. "Mr. Carter, Ms. Vance." Mrs. Carter Courtney corrected him sharply. Henry did not correct himself. He just pressed a button under the desk. They walked to the elevators. Malik pressed the button for the penthouse floor. Nothing happened. The light did not turn on. He pressed it again. Harder. "It's not working," he muttered. He tried his key fob. He waved it in front of the sensor. The light flashed red. "Access denied." "What is going on?" Courtney snapped. She was tired. She was hungover. She just wanted a shower. Malik looked at Henry. "Henry, the elevator is broken. Use your override key." Henry shook his head. "The elevator is fine, Mr. Carter. Your fob has been deactivated." "Deactivated?" Malik asked. "By who?" "By the owner," Henry said. Malik laughed, a nervous, brittle sound. "I am the owner." "Henry." Henry looked at him with pity. "No, sir. You are the occupant. The owner is Carter Logistics, and Mr. Isaiah Carter called this morning. He revoked all access privileges for non-essential personnel." Non-essential personnel. The words hit Malik like a physical blow. He wasn't just a son who had been cut off. He was an employee who had been fired. He was a tenant who had been evicted. "This is ridiculous," Courtney shouted. She marched over to the desk. "Listen to me, you glorified bellhop. Let us up right now, or I will have you fired. I live there. My things are up there." "Your things are not up there, ma'am," Henry said calmly. "What?" "Your things are in the loading dock," Henry said. Courtney stared at him. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Malik ran. He ran past the desk through the service corridor toward the back of the building. Courtney ran after him, her dress rustling like dry leaves. They burst out onto the concrete loading dock. And there it was. Their life. It was not in moving boxes, it was not organized, it was in garbage bags. Dozens of heavy black contractor bags piled up like trash waiting for pickup. A few items were too big for bags. The 60-inch television, the designer lamps, the espresso machine. They sat on the concrete exposed to the humid city air. And standing next to the pile guarding it like a sentinel was Dante. "Dante is my lawyer. He is not a warm man. He is not a family friend. He is a shark in a three-piece suit. He handles corporate litigation, mergers and acquisitions, and today evictions." Next to him stood two uniformed police officers. Malik stopped skidding to a halt. "Dante, what is this?" Dante adjusted his glasses. He held a file in his hand. "Good morning, Malik," he said. His voice was smooth and cold like polished steel. "This is the enforcement of an immediate termination of tenancy." "Termination!" Malik yelled. "You can't do that! I have rights! I have tenant rights! You have to give me 30 days! You have to give me notice!" Dante opened the file. "Actually, he said you do not. According to the occupancy agreement you signed 3 years ago," he pulled out a document, "you are classified as a guest at will of the corporation. There is no lease. There is no rent trail. You have lived here rent-free as a perk of your employment." He paused. "And since your employment was terminated for cause effective 9 a.m. this morning, your housing perk has also been revoked. Immediate effect." "Fired?" Malik whispered. He looked like he had been punched in the gut. "Dad fired me?" "The board of directors fired you," Dante corrected, "for misappropriation of company funds, using the corporate credit card for personal expenses, specifically a wedding that was not authorized business." He pointed to the bags. "We have packed your personal effects. Anything purchased with personal funds is here. Anything purchased with company funds, the furniture, the art, the electronics, remains property of Carter Logistics." Courtney screamed. She lunged at the pile of bags, tearing one open. Clothes spilled out. Her designer dresses, her shoes, her handbags. They were all jumbled together, wrinkled, and possibly ruined. "You monster," she shrieked, turning on Dante. "These are Birkin bags. You can't put them in trash bags. You ruined them." "We used the packing materials available," Dante said indifferently. "You have 1 hour to remove these items from the premises. After that, they will be considered abandoned property and disposed of." "Disposed of?" Courtney wailed. "Where are we supposed to take them? We don't have a car." Dante looked at the Rolls-Royce idling at the curb. The driver was watching the scene with wide eyes. "That appears to be a car," he said. "It's a rental," Malik shouted, "and I can't pay for it." "That is unfortunate," Dante said. "Perhaps you should call a taxi or a moving van, though I believe they require a credit card deposit." Malik looked at Dante. Then he looked at the police officers. They were standing with their arms crossed, bored but ready. They were there to ensure the peace, to ensure the eviction went smoothly. "Dad is doing this?" Malik asked. His voice was trembling. "He is actually doing this? He is throwing us on the street?" "Mr. Carter is protecting his assets," Dante said. "He suggests you find accommodations that fit your current financial reality." "My current financial reality?" Malik repeated. "Which is zero," Dante said. "Actually, it is negative. You owe the company $250,000 for the unauthorized wedding expenses. We will be filing a civil suit to recover that." Courtney stood up. She was holding a shoe, a Louboutin with a broken heel. She looked at Dante. Then she looked at the building towering above them. The penthouse with the view. The life she thought she had secured. "It's a gift!" she screamed. She threw the shoe at Dante. He sidestepped it easily. "That apartment was a wedding gift. He promised it to us. He said, 'This is your home.' That is a verbal contract." Dante sighed. He picked up the shoe and placed it gently on top of a trash bag. "In the state of New York, real estate transfers must be in writing," he said. "A verbal promise is not a contract. It is a sentiment. And sentiments change." He checked his watch. "You have 55 minutes, he said. Malik looked at the bags. He looked at Courtney, who was now sitting on the concrete, sobbing into her hands. He looked at the life he had lost. He realized then that the penthouse wasn't a home. It was a stage, and the show was canceled. He started dragging the bags toward the curb. He didn't know where he was going to take them. He didn't know how he was going to move them. He just knew he had to get them away from Dante's cold eyes. Courtney didn't help him. She just sat there, crying, mourning the death of her aesthetic. I watched the security feed from my study. I saw Malik struggling with the heavy bags, his tuxedo straining at the seams. I saw the doorman Henry come out and offer him a bottle of water. Malik took it and drank it in one gulp. I felt a twinge of pain. No father wants to see his son reduced to a scavenger picking through his own life on a loading dock. But then I remembered the text. You don't fit the aesthetic. I remembered the spa bill. I remembered the years of ungratefulness. I turned off the feed. The penthouse was empty. The accounts were closed. The job was gone. He was stripped bare, stripped. Now he would have to find out who he really was underneath the designer clothes and the borrowed luxury. And Courtney would have to decide if she loved the man or the address. I had a feeling I knew the answer. Monday morning at Carter Logistics usually begins with a low hum that vibrates through the soles of your shoes. It is the sound of commerce. It is the sound of 300 diesel engines idling in the yard preparing to haul freight to the four corners of this country. It is the sound of dispatchers on headsets and forklifts beeping in the warehouse. It is a symphony of productivity that I spent 40 years composing. My son Malik never heard the music. To him, Carter Logistics was just a piggy bank. It was the place that direct deposited his salary every 2 weeks for a job title that meant nothing. Director of Brand Strategy. A title I invented so he could wear a suit and feel important. He came in at 10, he left at 3. He spent the hours in between looking at watches online and taking long lunches. But on this particular Monday, Malik arrived at 8:30. I watched him on the security feed from my home office. I had not gone in. I did not want to see him. I wanted the system I built to handle him. A system relies on rules. If you break the rules, the system corrects you. Malik was about to be corrected. He arrived in a yellow taxi. He did not have the Rolls-Royce anymore. He did not have the Range Rover. He had a receipt for a $30 cab ride that he paid for with cash he likely found in the pocket of his tuxedo. And he was still wearing the tuxedo. It was a pathetic sight. The midnight blue fabric was wrinkled and stained with sweat. The tie was missing. The top button of his shirt was undone, exposing his neck. He looked like the survivor of a bachelor party gone horribly wrong. He was carrying a leather briefcase he had salvaged from the penthouse eviction. It was the only thing he had left. He walked toward the glass revolving doors of the headquarters. He walked with his head down. He was hoping to slip into the private elevator before anyone saw him. He was hoping to get to his office, close the door, and maybe sleep on the leather couch before trying to figure out how to fix his life. He did not know that his office no longer existed. He stepped into the lobby. The receptionist was a woman named Sarah. She had been with the company for 15 years. She had known Malik since he was a teenager who used to come in and steal sodas from the break room. She did not smile when she saw him. She looked down at her desk. She pressed a button. Malik walked past the reception desk without acknowledging her. He headed for the turnstiles that guarded the elevators. He pulled his security badge out of his pocket. It was on a lanyard. He swung it toward the reader. Click. Nothing happened. The little light on the turnstile remained solid red. The metal bar did not move. Malik frowned. He swiped it again. Harder this time. He slapped the plastic against the sensor. "Come on," he muttered. He looked around. The lobby was filling up with employees, analysts, accountants, shift managers, people who worked for their paychecks. They were looking at him. They were looking at the boss's son in a dirty tuxedo trying to break into his own building. Malik felt their eyes. He started to sweat. He tried to jump the turnstile, but he was too tired and the briefcase was too heavy. He stumbled back. "Hey, Sarah!" he shouted across the lobby. His voice cracked. "Sarah, buzz me in! My badge is demagnetized or something." Sarah did not look up. She was typing furiously. Malik slammed his hand on the metal turnstile. "Sarah, do you hear me? Open the gate!" That is when the shadow fell over him. It was Mike, the head of building security. Mike is 6'5". He is a former linebacker. "He does not have a sense of humor about unauthorized entry," Mr. Carter, Mike said. His voice was deep and calm. "Please step away from the secure area." Malik spun around. "Mike! Thank God. The system is down. Just override it. I need to get upstairs. I have a meeting." "You do not have a meeting," Mike said. "What? Of course I do. I work here, Mike. I am the director of marketing. Now let me in." Mike shook his head slowly. "Not anymore, sir." Malik froze. The lobby went silent. Even the hum of the air conditioning seemed to stop. "What did you say?" Malik whispered. "Your employment was terminated effective 7 a.m. this morning," Mike said. His voice carried. Everyone heard it. The board of directors convened an emergency meeting over the weekend. They voted unanimously. "Terminated?" Malik laughed, a high, hysterical sound. "You can't fire me. My dad owns this company. I am a Carter." Mr. Isaiah Carter abstained from the vote, Mike said. But he did sign the order. The cause was gross misconduct and misappropriation of corporate funds. Specifically, the unauthorized use of company accounts to fund personal vendors related to a wedding. "That is embezzlement, sir. Embezzlement." The word hung in the air like a guillotine blade. "That is a lie!" Malik screamed. He lunged toward the turnstile. "I need to talk to him. He is upstairs, isn't he?" "Dad! Dad!" Mike caught him. He did not tackle him. He just put one large hand on Malik's chest and stopped him cold. It was like Malik had run into a wall. "Sir, you are causing a disturbance," Mike said. "You need to leave the premises immediately. If you do not, I will have to physically remove you, and I will call the police to press charges for trespassing." Malik looked at Mike's hand. He looked at the faces of the employees. He saw pity. He saw contempt. He saw the truth reflected in their eyes. He was not the prince of the kingdom. He was just a thief who had been caught. "I need my things," Malik said. His voice was small. "My laptop, my contacts, my car keys. The Porsche is in the executive garage. I need my car." "Your personal effects from your desk have been boxed and mailed to the address on file," Mike said, "which I believe is the penthouse. Since you no longer reside there, they will likely be returned to the sender. As for company property..." Mike paused. He looked out the glass doors toward the parking lot. Malik followed his gaze. "The executive lot is right in front of the building. It is reserved for the C-suite. There, in spot number 2, sat the Porsche 911 Turbo S Silver. Sleek, a $200,000 machine that could go 0 to 60 in 2.6 seconds. It was Malik's pride and joy. He loved that car more than he loved his job, maybe more than he loved Courtney. But there was another vehicle in the lot. A large, flatbed tow truck. It was backing up. The warning beepers were sounding. Beep, beep, beep. No. Malik breathed. He turned and ran. He ran past Mike, who let him go. He ran out the revolving doors, stumbling onto the pavement. "No, stop! That is my car!" The tow truck driver did not stop. He was a professional. He had the lift lowered. He was hooking the chains onto the axle of the Porsche. Malik sprinted across the asphalt, his tuxedo shoes slipping. He grabbed the door handle of the Porsche. It was locked. He banged on the window. "Get away from my car!" he screamed at the driver. The driver was a man named Sal. I have known Sal for 20 years. He contracts for the city, but he does private jobs for me when I need something moved quietly. Sal looked at Malik. He chewed on a toothpick. "Paperwork says repossession," Sal said. "Corporate asset. Leaseholder revoked permissions. Step back, kid. You are going to get hurt." "It is mine," Malik yelled. "It was a gift." Sal shrugged. "Title says Carter Logistics. You ain't Carter Logistics anymore." Sal pulled the lever. The hydraulics whined. The front end of the Porsche lifted into the air. The silver paint gleamed in the morning sun. It looked like a dying fish being pulled from the water. Malik grabbed the rear bumper, trying to hold the car down with his own weight. It was pathetic. The machine did not care about his desperation. The car rose higher and higher. "Put it down!" Malik was sobbing now. Tears were streaming down his face, mixing with the dirt and the sweat. "Please, it is all I have. I don't have a home. I don't have a job. Just leave me the car. I will pay you. I will pay you double." Sal looked at him. "With what?" he asked. Malik patted his pockets. He pulled out his wallet. He opened it. It was empty. The cash was gone. The cards were dead chunks of plastic. He had nothing. Sal shook his head. "Sorry, kid. Boss's orders." He finished securing the chains. He climbed into the cab of the tow truck. The diesel engine roared to life. Malik stood back. He watched as the truck pulled away. He watched his Porsche. His symbol of status, his last connection to the life he thought he deserved, bounced slightly on the flatbed as it turned onto the main road and disappeared into traffic. He stood alone in the middle of the parking lot. The employees were watching from the lobby windows. Dozens of faces pressed against the glass. The audience for his final act. He looked down at himself. The ruined tuxedo, the scuffed shoes, the hands that had never done a day of hard work in their life now empty and trembling. He looked up at the building. He looked at the window of my office on the top floor. He couldn't see me, but he knew I was there. He did not scream. He did not curse. He just slumped. His shoulders collapsed. The arrogance finally evaporated, leaving behind only a frightened man-child who had never learned how to survive winter. He turned and started walking toward the street, not toward a taxi stand. He couldn't afford one. Toward the bus stop. I watched him go. I saw him check his pockets for change. I saw him realize he might not even have enough for the fare. It was the hardest thing I have ever watched. Every instinct in my body as a father screamed at me to run down there to give him a ride, to write him a check, to fix it. But I stayed in my chair. I gripped the armrest until my knuckles turned white. "Pain is a teacher," I whispered to the empty room, "and class is in session." Malik stood at the bus stop, surrounded by strangers who looked at his tuxedo with suspicion. He was out of place. He was out of time. He was completely and utterly stripped down to the bone, and for the first time in his life, he was about to find out if he had a spine. Malik arrived at the Vance family home shortly after sunset. He did not arrive in a Porsche. He did not arrive in a luxury Uber. He arrived on foot, walking the last mile from the bus stop, because he did not have the energy to explain his appearance to a taxi driver, even if he could have afforded one. His feet were blistered in his tuxedo shoes. His shirt was soaked with sweat. He was carrying his leather briefcase, the last remnant of his executive life, like it was a shield. He expected sympathy. He expected a safe harbor. He thought that even though the wedding had been a disaster, even though the money was gone, he still had Courtney. They were a team, right? Us against the world. That is what she had whispered to him in the Maldives brochure they had looked at together. He walked up the driveway. The white Rolls-Royce was gone, returned by the rental company. The backyard was quiet. The pizza boxes were still stacked on the table, a greasy monument to their failure. He knocked on the front door. It opened almost immediately. Robert Vance stood there. He was wearing a silk smoking jacket and holding a glass of scotch. He looked at Malik with an expression that was not welcoming. It was the look you give a stray dog that has come back to beg for scraps after biting you. "Malik," Robert said. What are you doing here? Malik blinked. What do you mean? I live here. For now. With Courtney. Until we figure this out. Robert did not step aside. He blocked the doorway. Figure what out? He asked. There is nothing to figure out. You are broke. Your father has cut you off. You have no job. You have no car. You have no apartment. I know, Malik said, his voice cracking. That is why I am here. I need to talk to Courtney. We need to make a plan. A plan? Robert laughed. It was a cruel sound. The plan was for you to be rich, Malik. The plan was for you to take care of my daughter in the manner to which she is accustomed. You have failed the plan. Let me in, Robert, Malik said, trying to push past him. I need to see my wife. Wife? Robert sneered. You didn't sign the marriage license, did you? The officiant left before the ceremony. Technically, you are just, acquaintances. Malik froze. It was true. In the chaos of the locked gates and the pizza, they had never actually signed the papers. They had never said the vows. Where is she? Malik demanded. She is in the living room, Robert said, stepping back finally. But I warn you, she is not in a good mood. Malik walked into the house. The air conditioning was cold on his sweaty skin. The house smelled of stale potpourri and desperation. Courtney was sitting on the beige sofa. She was wearing a silk robe. Her eyes were puffy. She was holding a glass of wine. Her mother, Evelyn, was sitting next to her, patting her hand. They looked up when Malik entered. Courtney did not smile. She did not run to him. She looked at him with a mixture of disgust and boredom. You look terrible, she said. I had a bad day, Malik said. He dropped his briefcase on the floor. It made a heavy thud. Dad fired me, Courtney. He took the car. He locked me out of the building. I have nothing. Courtney took a sip of wine. I know, she said. Daddy told me. He heard it from a friend at the club. Everyone knows, Malik. Everyone knows you are a loser. Malik flinched. Courtney, don't say that. We can fix this. I can get another job. I can start over. We can build something real. Build something real? Courtney laughed. With what? Your charm, your marketing skills? You don't have any skills, Malik. Your only skill was being Isaiah Carter's son. And now you aren't even that. Malik stepped closer. He reached out a hand. Courtney, please, I love you. We love each other. That is what matters. Not the money. Not the house. Us. Courtney stood up. She slapped his hand away. Love? She spat. Do you think I loved you for your personality? You are boring, Malik. You are weak. You have no spine. I love the life you promised me. I love the penthouse. I love the black card. I love the idea of being Mrs. Carter, the queen of the logistics empire. She paused. Her eyes narrowed. You lied to me, Malik. You told me your dad was sick. You told me he had heart problems. You said, don't worry, babe. He won't be around forever. And when he goes, we get everything. Malik went cold. He had said that. In a moment of weakness late one night when Courtney was complaining about my interference, he had tried to placate her. He had tried to buy her patience with the promise of my death. I didn't mean it like that, Malik stammered. Yes, you did, Courtney said. You sold me a future where I was a rich widow's daughter-in-law. But guess what? Your dad is healthy as a horse. He is going to live to be 100, and he is going to spend every dime of that money while you watch from the gutter. She reached into the pocket of her robe. She pulled out the engagement ring. It was a 3-carat diamond. I had paid for it, $40,000. She looked at the ring, then she looked at Malik. I pawned the wedding bands this morning, she said. I got $500 for them. It paid for my facial. But this is just glass to me now. She threw the ring. It hit Malik in the chest. It bounced off a button of his tuxedo shirt and fell to the floor with a tiny, insignificant tink. Get out, Courtney said. Malik stared at the ring on the carpet. He stared at the woman he had been willing to destroy his father for. He realized then that he wasn't a partner. He was an investment vehicle, and the market had crashed. Courtney, he whispered, please, I have nowhere to go. Go to a shelter, Evelyn said from the couch. Or go back to your daddy. Maybe he has a doghouse you can sleep in. Robert walked in from the hallway. He was holding a golf club, a 9-iron. He wasn't swinging it, but he was holding it like he knew how to use it. You heard her, Robert said. Get out of my house. You are trespassing." Malik looked at the golf club. He looked at the faces of the Vance family. The mask was off. The veneer of civilization was gone. They were just greedy, empty people protecting their shrinking territory. He bent down. He picked up the ring. It felt cold in his hand. He looked at Courtney one last time. "You are right," he said. His voice was quiet. "I am weak, because I let you turn me into this. But I am not a loser. A loser is someone who stays in a game they have already lost." He picked up his briefcase. He turned around. He walked to the front door. Robert stepped aside, keeping the golf club raised. Malik opened the door. The night air was humid. It smelled of rain. He stepped out onto the porch. "And don't come back!" Evelyn shouted from the living room. "We are changing the locks tomorrow." The door slammed shut behind him. The lock clicked. Malik stood on the porch of the Vance house. He was alone. He had no money. He had no car. He had no wife. He had no father. He looked at the ring in his hand. It was the only thing of value he had left. He walked down the driveway. He walked past the spot where the Rolls-Royce had been. He walked out onto the street. He started walking toward the city. He didn't know where he was going. He just knew he had to keep moving. He put the ring in his pocket. He touched the rough leather of his briefcase. It started to rain. A slow, steady drizzle that soaked into his tuxedo, matting the wool, making it heavy. He walked. And as he walked, the anger began to fade, replaced by a deep, hollow ache. The ache of realization. The ache of knowing that everything his father had said, everything I had warned him about, was true. They didn't love him. They loved the aesthetic. And without the frame, the picture was worthless to them. He was a man without a country, a son without a father, but he was still walking. And that, at least, was something. 2 days after Malik was thrown out of the Vance house, the next phase of their attack began. It was not a phone call. It was a courier. I was sitting on my porch, enjoying the morning sun. I was drinking coffee and reading the paper. The birds were singing. It was peaceful. A gray sedan pulled up to my gate. A man in a cheap suit got out. He walked up to the intercom. "Delivery for Isaiah Carter," he said. I buzzed him in. He walked up the driveway, handed me a thick envelope, and left without a word. I opened it. It was a lawsuit. Courtney Vance versus Isaiah Carter. The charges were absurd: intentional infliction of emotional distress, breach of promise, defamation of character, and something called tortious interference with marital relations. They were suing me for $10 million. $10 million, I read the complaint. It was a masterpiece of fiction. According to the document, I had maliciously and sadistically plotted to destroy Courtney's wedding because of my deep-seated prejudice against interracial relationships. It claimed I had promised to gift them the penthouse and then reneged to cause maximum psychological harm. It claimed I was a controlling, abusive tyrant who had financially enslaved my son. The lawyer representing them was a man named Saul Goodman. Not really, but he might as well have been. His name was Barry, the Bulldog, Lipschitz. I knew him by reputation. He was a bottom feeder who chased ambulances and sued grocery stores for slip and falls. He took cases on contingency, which meant the Vances hadn't paid him a dime. He smelled blood in the water, and he wanted a piece of the Carter fortune. I called Dante. He was already laughing when he picked up. "I assume you got the package?" Dante asked. "I did," I said. "It is creative writing at its finest." "It is garbage," Dante said. "We can get it dismissed in a week. There is no contract for the apartment. There is no proof of prejudice. It is a shakedown, Ike. They are hoping you will settle just to make it go away." "I know," I said, "but they are not done yet." "What do you mean?" "Turn on the TV," I said. Channel 5. The morning show. I had the TV on in the living room. I walked inside. There, on the screen, sitting on a beige couch next to a sympathetic blonde host, was Courtney Vance. She was wearing a modest dress, high-necked, very conservative. Her makeup was done to make her look pale and fragile. She was dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Next to her sat Robert and Evelyn Vance, looking like concerned, grieving parents. And next to them sat Barry Lipschitz, looking like a shark in a pinstripe suit. "So, Courtney," the host said, leaning forward with practiced empathy, "tell us what happened. This was supposed to be the happiest day of your life." Courtney sniffled. "It was a nightmare, honestly. We thought Malik's father supported us. He always acted like he did, but behind closed doors, She trailed off, letting the implication hang there. He was controlling, Robert Vance chimed in. He used money as a weapon. He made my daughter beg for basic necessities. And when he found out she was, well, that she wasn't the kind of girl he wanted for his son. Because she's white? The host asked, her eyes widening. Robert nodded gravely. He never said it explicitly, of course, but the microaggressions were constant. He wouldn't let them eat certain foods. He criticized her upbringing. He told Malik he was betraying his roots. I watched the screen. My hand tightened on my coffee mug. Lies. Pure, unadulterated lies. I had never commented on Courtney's race. I didn't care who Malik loved, as long as she loved him back. My issue was her character, not her color. And then, Courtney sobbed, on the morning of the wedding, he cut us off. He cut us. He locked us out of our home. He stole our car. He left us on the street with nothing. He wanted to humiliate me. He wanted to break us. That is horrific, the host said. And where is Malik now? He's missing, Courtney whispered. He left the house 2 nights ago. He was so broken by what his father did. We don't know where he is. We are so worried. Missing? I frowned. I hadn't heard from Malik since the night of the pizza. I assumed he was staying with a friend. We are suing for justice, Lipschitz interjected, looking straight at the camera. Mr. Carter thinks he is above the law because he has money. He thinks he can abuse his family and get away with it. We are here to say, no more. We will fight for Courtney. We will fight for Malik. The segment ended with a montage of photos, Courtney crying at the gate, the pizza boxes, the tow truck taking the Porsche. The chyron at the bottom of the screen read, Billionaire bully, father destroys son's wedding in racist rage. I turned off the TV. The silence in the room was heavy. Dante was still on the phone. Ike, you there? I'm here, I said. Okay, that complicates things, Dante said. The court of public opinion is a different beast. They are playing dirty. They are trying to force a settlement by destroying your reputation. I know, I said. We need to issue a statement, Dante said. We need to deny the allegations. We need to countersue for defamation. No, I said. No? Not yet, I said. Let them talk. Let them dig the hole deeper. Ike, they are calling you a racist on national television. This could hurt the business. Partners might pull contracts. Let them, I said. I built this business on trust. The people who know me know the truth. The people who don't, well, they will learn. So what do we do? Dante asked. We wait, I said, and we find Malik. I hung up. I sat in my chair. The anger was there, a hot coal in my chest. But I did not let it burn me. I used it. I let it fuel my focus. They wanted a villain. They wanted a story about a mean old man and a poor innocent girl. They wanted to make this about race because that was an easy narrative to sell. It was lazy, it was predictable, and it was easily disproven. But not yet. If you interrupt your enemy when they are making a mistake, you save them. I wanted them to finish the mistake. I wanted them to commit to the lie so fully that there was no way back. I picked up my phone. I called Sal, the tow truck driver. He has friends all over the city. He knows the streets. Sal, I said, I need you to find my boy. Malik? Sal asked. I thought he was with the in-laws. He left, I said, 2 nights ago. No money, no phone service. Find him, Sal, but don't approach him. Just tell me where he is. On it, boss, Sal said. I spent the rest of the day in my study. The phone rang constantly. Reporters, business associates, random people who had seen the news and wanted to tell me I was a monster. I did not answer. I watched the news cycle spin. By the evening news, the story had grown. Now there were anonymous sources claiming I had a history of violence, claiming I ran my company like a plantation. The Vances were enjoying their moment in the spotlight. They were giving interviews to anyone with a microphone. Robert Vance was talking about starting a foundation for victims of financial abuse. It was a circus, and I was the clown in the dunk tank. But I knew something they didn't. I knew about the paper trail. I opened my safe again. I pulled out a box of old files, bank statements from 10 years ago, tuition receipts, emails. I found the file labeled Vance Loan. 5 years ago, Robert Vance had come to me quietly. He was about to lose his house. He needed $50,000. I gave it to him. No interest, no contract. Just a handshake between fathers. He never paid it back. I found the file labeled Courtney Carr, the down payment receipt, the monthly insurance payments. I found the emails from Courtney, hundreds of them. "Hi, Dad. Thank you so much for the trip. You are the best. Hi, Ike. Can you help us with the rent this month? We love you." Not a single word about race, not a single complaint about abuse, just years and years of begging and gratitude. And then I found the video Darius had sent me, the one of Robert Vance calling me a slur in his own backyard. I looked at the pile of evidence on my desk. It was a nuclear bomb, but I didn't detonate it, not yet. I waited. 2 days passed. The Vances continued their media tour. They started a GoFundMe page for their legal fees. It raised $5,000 in a day. People love a victim. On the third day, Sal called. "I found him, boss," Sal said. "Where?" "He's at a construction site on the west side, day labor, carrying bricks. He's sleeping at a hostel on 4th Street. My heart clenched. My son, the boy who complained if his latte foam wasn't perfect, carrying bricks. "Is he okay?" I asked. "He looks rough," Sal said. "Skinny, tired. But he's working, Ike. He showed up at 6 a.m. and he hasn't stopped." I closed my eyes. "Okay, keep an eye on him. Don't let him see you." "Copy that." I hung up. I looked at the TV. Courtney was on another talk show. She was wearing a different dress, but the tears were the same. She was talking about how she feared for her safety, how she needed a restraining order. She was pushing. She was pushing hard. It was time. They had told their story. They had built their house of cards on national television. Now, it was time to turn on the fan. I called Dante. "Set it up," I said. "Press conference, tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., in the lobby of Carter Logistics." "Are you sure?" Dante asked. "You want to address this?" "I don't want to address it," I said. "I want to end it." "Okay," Dante said. "I'll notify the press. What are you going to say?" "Nothing," I said. "I'm just going to show them the receipts." I looked at the pile of documents on my desk. I looked at the flash drive with the video. The Vances wanted a war. They wanted a public spectacle. They were about to get one. But the ending wasn't going to be the one they wrote. I turned off the lights in my study. I went upstairs. I slept like a baby. Tomorrow, the truth was coming out to play. The lobby of Carter Logistics is not designed for press conferences. It is designed for efficiency. It has polished concrete floors, steel columns, and a reception desk that looks like the bridge of a starship. But on this particular Wednesday, it was transformed into a media circus. Dante had set up a podium in front of the company logo, a stylized wheel and wing. There were 50 chairs, all full. Cameras were set up in the back. Reporters from every major network were there, along with the bloggers and the influencers who had been feeding on the story for days. The narrative was set. I was the villain, the rich, angry, racist father who had destroyed his son's happiness. I stood in the private elevator waiting for the doors to open. I was wearing my best suit, not a tuxedo, a charcoal gray business suit. I looked like a CEO. I looked like a man who had built something. The doors opened, the flashbulbs went off. It was blinding. I walked to the podium. I did not smile. I did not wave. I placed a single folder on the stand. Dante stood next to me. He leaned into the microphone. "Good morning," Dante said. "Mr. Carter will make a brief statement. He will not be taking questions." The reporters shouted. "Why did you ruin the wedding? Are you a racist? Where is your son?" I raised my hand. Silence fell. It was the kind of silence you get when the teacher walks into a rowdy classroom. I looked at the cameras. I looked at the red lights indicating they were live. "My name is Isaiah Carter," I said. My voice was steady. "For the last week, I have been accused of many things. Cruelty, prejudice, abuse. I have been called a monster." I paused. "I am not here to argue with opinions," I said. "I am here to present facts. In my business, we have a saying, if it isn't on the manifest, it didn't happen. Well, here is the manifest." I nodded to Dante. He pressed a button on a remote. Behind me, a massive projection screen lowered from the ceiling. The first image appeared. It was a spreadsheet, but not just any spreadsheet. It was a detailed, categorized list of every dollar I had spent on Courtney Vance and her family over the last 3 years. The numbers were staggering. Penthouse rent, corporate housing, $432,000. Luxury vehicles, lease and insurance, $180,000. The credit card bills, clothing, dining, travel, $650,000. Emergency, loans to Robert Vance, $150,000. The total was at the bottom, in bold red letters, $1,412,000. The room gasped. $1.5 million. That is not abuse. That is a lottery win. This, I said, pointing to the screen, is what financial abuse looks like in the Vance dictionary. I have supported my son and his fiancée entirely. I have paid for their home, their cars, their clothes, and their food. I even paid for the facelift Mrs. Vance got last year, though she told everyone it was a spa retreat. A ripple of laughter went through the room. But money is just money, I said. It can be earned. It can be spent. What cannot be bought is respect. I nodded again. The screen changed. It was a screenshot of the text message, blown up to 10 feet tall. Hey, Dad. Look, this is hard to say. Courtney says her parents are very traditional and your presence might make them uncomfortable. Honestly, Dad, you just do not fit the aesthetic of the wedding. I let them read it. I let them absorb the cruelty of those words. Aesthetic. Uncomfortable. This, I said, is the message I received on the morning of the wedding, after I had paid $250,000 for the venue, after I had bought a suit, after I had prepared a toast to welcome my new daughter. I looked at the camera. I spoke directly to Courtney, wherever she was watching. You said I didn't fit the aesthetic, I said. You were right. My aesthetic is honesty. My aesthetic is gratitude. My aesthetic is loyalty. And you, Courtney, are none of those things. The reporters were typing furiously. The mood in the room had shifted. The villain narrative was cracking. But there is one more thing, I said. You called me a racist. You said I hated you because you are white. You said I was the one with hate in my heart. I signaled Dante. This video, I said, was taken at the reception you held in your parents' backyard. The reception where you ate pizza because you had spent all my money on appearances and left nothing for substance. The video played. The sound was crisp and clear over the PA system. Robert Vance's face filled the screen, red and sweaty. The problem is that he forgot his place. He forgot who he is. He thinks because he has a big house and a black card he is one of us. But he is not. He is just a nigger with a lottery ticket. The slur hit the room like a bomb. Gasps, shouts of outrage. A reporter in the front row covered her mouth. Then Courtney's voice. My dad is drunk, Malik, but he is not wrong about the money. Your dad is using his money to abuse us. He is a tyrant. And honestly, if he is going to act like an animal, maybe he deserves to be called one. Animal. The video ended. The screen went black. The silence in the lobby was absolute. It was heavy. It was suffocating. I looked at the crowd. I am a black man who built a business from nothing in this country, I said. I have faced racism my whole life. I have been pulled over for driving my own truck. I have been denied loans. I have been called every name in the book. But to hear it from the people I invited into my family, to hear it from the woman my son chose to love, I shook my head. I did not cut them off because of their race, I said. I cut them off because of their character. I cut them off because they are parasites, and I am done feeding them. I picked up my folder. That is all, I said. I walked away from the podium. Dante followed me. The reporters started shouting again, but this time the questions were different. Mr. Carter, are you going to sue? What do you have to say to Robert Vance? Is your son involved in this? I did not answer. I walked into the elevator. The doors closed. I stood there in the quiet metal box. I took a deep breath. It was done. The truth was out. The receipts were shown. I went up to my office. I turned on the TV. Every channel was playing the video. The clip of Robert Vance saying the slur was being bleeped, but everyone knew what he said. The text message was being analyzed by pundits. Twitter was on fire. # Greedy Vance Family was trending #1 worldwide. T-Mike was #2. Aesthetic was #3, filled with memes mocking Courtney. People were digging into the Vances. They found Robert's bankruptcy records. They found Courtney's old tweets where she complained about poor people ruining her view. They found everything. The court of public opinion had rendered its verdict, and it was a guilty verdict with no possibility of parole. I sat at my desk. I looked out the window at the city I helped build. I felt vindicated. But I also felt a deep, aching sadness. Because in all of this, in the victory and the viral fame, I had still lost my son. Malik was out there somewhere watching this, watching his wife and her family be destroyed, watching his father expose the rot at the center of his life. I hoped he was watching. I hoped he was seeing the truth, finally stripped of the filters and the lies. Because if he couldn't see it now, he never would. My phone rang. It was Dante. "Ike," he said. "It's starting. The Vance's lawyer just called. He wants to drop the lawsuit. He says they want to move on and heal." I laughed. "Tell him no," I said. "No?" "Tell him I am countersuing," I said. "For defamation, for fraud, for the return of the engagement ring. I want it all, Dante. Scorched earth." "Understood," Dante said. "I'll draft the papers." I hung up. I wasn't done yet. The truth was out, but justice hadn't been served, not fully. The Vances thought they could use the media to hurt me. They thought they could shame me. They didn't know that shame only works on people who have something to hide. I had nothing to hide. I had the receipts. And now, the whole world had them too. The aftermath of the press conference was not a slow burn. It was a forest fire. Within hours of the video going viral, the Vance family became the most hated people on the internet. Courtney was the first to feel the heat. She was a minor influencer on Instagram with about 50,000 followers. She posted about fashion, lifestyle, and wellness. Her brand was built on an image of effortless perfection and old money elegance. By Thursday morning, her brand was toxic waste. She woke up to 10,000 notifications. But they weren't likes. They were comments. Thousands of them. Racist, gold digger, entitled brat. People were tagging the brands she worked with. I watched it happen in real time. I have a young analyst at the company who monitors social media. He sent me the updates. Update: Glow Skin Organics has dropped Courtney Vance. Public statement issued. Update: LuxFit Apparel has terminated their partnership. Update: the local charity board has asked Evelyn Vance to resign. Courtney tried to do damage control. She posted a tearful apology video. She wore no makeup. She sat on the floor of her parents' living room. "I am so sorry," she wept into the camera. That video was taken out of context. My father was drunk. I was in shock. I didn't mean what I said about Malik's dad. I love him. I was just confused. It didn't work. The internet is a cruel judge, but it has a good nose for authenticity. And Courtney smelled fake. The comments under her apology were brutal. "You called him a tyrant because he stopped paying for your facials. Girl, you ate pizza in a Vera Wang dress because you're broke. Own it." T-Mike. By Friday, the brands were gone. The followers were unfollowing. The income stream that paid for her oat milk lattes and her Pilates classes had dried up. But the real damage was happening offline. Robert Vance was a member of the Oakwood Country Club. It is the most exclusive club in the city. The membership fee is $50,000 a year. It was the center of Robert's social life. It was where he made his deals, which were mostly just borrowing money from friends he hadn't alienated yet. On Friday afternoon, Robert walked into the club for lunch. He walked into the grill room expecting his usual table. The maitre d', a man named Charles who had served him for 20 years, stopped him at the door. "I am sorry, Mr. Vance," Charles said quietly. "Your membership has been suspended." "Suspended?" Robert blustered. "On what grounds? I am a legacy member." "Violating the code of conduct," Charles said. "Specifically, conduct unbecoming a gentleman. The board met this morning. They viewed the video. They found your language incompatible with the club's values." "My language?" Robert shouted. It was a private conversation, in my own backyard. It is on CNN, sir, Charles said. It is no longer private. Please leave or I will have to call security. Robert looked around the room. He saw his friends. He saw the men he played golf with. They looked down at their plates. They adjusted their napkins. No one made eye contact. He was a pariah. He turned and walked out. He didn't even get to order a drink. The social exile was swift and total. Evelyn was uninvited from the garden club. Her bridge group stopped returning her calls. The neighbors stopped waving. They were isolated. They were alone in their crumbling McMansion with nothing but their pride and their pizza boxes. And that is when they turned on each other. It started at dinner on Friday night. They were eating leftovers because they couldn't afford takeout, and the grocery delivery service had canceled their account due to non-payment. "This is your fault," Evelyn hissed at Courtney. "If you hadn't been so greedy, if you hadn't sent that stupid text message." "My fault?" Courtney screamed. "You told me to do it. You said, 'Don't let him ruin the pictures, Courtney. Tell Malik to handle him.' You put the idea in my head." "I didn't tell you to ban him," Evelyn shouted. "I said manage him. You are the one who has to have everything perfect. You and your aesthetic." "Stop it," Robert yelled, slamming his hand on the table. "Both of you! It's Malik's fault. He didn't control his father. He let the old man run wild." "No, Dad," Courtney said, her voice dripping with venom. "It's your fault. You called him a racial slur on camera. You destroyed us. You are a drunk bigot and now the whole world knows it." Robert stood up. His face was purple. "I said what everyone was thinking. He is trash. He has always been trash." "He has $100 million, Courtney shrieked. "And we have nothing. Who is the trash now, Dad? Who is eating tuna casserole in the dark because we can't pay the electric bill?" The argument escalated. Plates were thrown. Words were said that could never be taken back. The Vance family, which had always prided itself on its unity and its superiority, was tearing itself apart from the inside. Courtney stormed out of the kitchen. She ran upstairs to her old bedroom. She slammed the door. She sat on her bed. She looked around the room. It was filled with trophies from her beauty pageant days. Ribbons, sashes, photos of a smiling girl who thought the world owed her everything. She picked up her phone. She looked at her contacts. Malik wasn't answering. She had called him 50 times. He had blocked her. She looked at the number she had sworn she would never call again. Isaiah Carter. She hesitated. Her pride was a physical thing, a lump in her throat, but her fear was stronger. She was terrified. She was broke. She was alone. She dialed. I was in my study reading a book. It was a biography of Frederick Douglass. I like reading about men who overcame impossible odds. My phone rang. I looked at the screen. Incoming call. Courtney Vance. I watched it ring. I imagined her sitting in her room, desperate. I imagined her thinking she could charm me one last time, thinking she could cry and apologize and say it was all a misunderstanding, thinking she could manipulate the old man just one more time. She didn't understand. The old man was gone. The ATM was out of order. I did not answer. I pressed the side button. The ringing stopped. Then I went into my contacts. I selected Courtney Vance. I scrolled down to the bottom. Block this caller. Confirm. I did the same for Robert and for Evelyn. I set the phone down. The silence in the room was profound. It wasn't empty silence. It was the silence of a closed door. The Vances were gone. They were a bad memory. A lesson learned. I went back to my book. I turned the page. Outside, the wind was blowing through the trees. It was a clean wind. A fresh wind. It swept away the dust and the noise. The Vances had built their castle on sand, and the tide had finally come in. The alarm on the cheap burner phone went off at 4:30 in the morning. It was a harsh digital beep that sounded nothing like the gentle orchestral swell Malik used to wake up to in the penthouse. He rolled over on the thin mattress. The springs dug into his ribs. The room smelled of stale beer, old sweat, and industrial cleaner. It was a hostel on 4th Street, a place where dreams went to die and where men with no names went to sleep for $12 a night. Malik sat up. His body screamed. Every muscle in his back was tight. His hands, the hands that had only ever held a steering wheel or a champagne flute, were swollen. He looked at them in the dim light coming from the hallway. There were blisters on his palms. Some had popped and were raw and red. There was dirt under his fingernails, dark grease that no amount of scrubbing in the communal bathroom sink could remove. He put on his work boots. They were cheap steel-toed boots he had bought at a thrift store. They were a size too big and rubbed his heels raw. but they were required for the job site. He pulled on a pair of stiff canvas pants and a neon yellow vest. He did not look in the mirror. He did not want to see the ghost of the man who used to wear Italian suits. He walked out into the cool morning air. The city was still asleep. The skyscrapers where he used to pretend to work were just dark silhouettes against the purple sky. He walked 3 blocks to the corner where the day labor van picked up. There were other men there, men with hard faces and tired eyes. They did not look at him. They did not care about his last name. To them, he was just another body capable of lifting 50 pounds. The foreman, a man with a thick neck and a clipboard, pointed at him. "You. New guy." Back of the truck. Malik climbed in. He sat on a metal bench. The van smelled of coffee and cigarettes. They drove to a construction site on the west side. It was a new luxury condo building. The irony was not lost on him. He was building the kind of life he used to live, brick by heavy brick. His job for the day was hauling drywall, sheets of gypsum board that weighed 60 pounds each. He had to carry them up 4 flights of stairs because the service elevator was broken. By 10 o'clock, his arms were shaking. By noon, he thought he was going to vomit. He sat on a bucket during his lunch break. He ate a sandwich he had made from gas station bread and bologna. It tasted like sawdust. He looked at his hands again, the grease, the calluses forming, and suddenly, he was 8 years old again. He was in the garage of the big house. I was there. I was under the hood of an old Peterbilt I was restoring. I was covered in oil. My hands were black with it. He remembered asking me, "Dad, why don't you hire someone to do that?" "We have money." I had slid out from under the truck. I had wiped my hands on a rag, but the oil didn't come off. I had looked at him and said, "Malik, you have to know how the machine works. If you don't know how to fix it, you don't really own it. It owns you." He hadn't understood then. He had wrinkled his nose at the smell of the oil. He had gone back inside to play video games in the air conditioning. Now, sitting on a bucket in the dust, he understood. He had never owned his life. The money, the car, the apartment, the wife, none of it was his. He didn't know how to fix any of it. He had just been a passenger, and when the driver kicked him out, he was lost. He thought about Courtney. He thought about the way she looked at him when he had no money. The disgust. The way she threw the ring. He thought about me. He thought about the audit, the press conference, the way I had stripped him down. For the first time, he didn't feel anger. He felt shame, a deep, burning shame that was hotter than the muscles in his back. He realized that I hadn't cut him off because I hated him. I had cut him off because I loved him too much to let him continue being a parasite. I had saved him from a marriage that was a business transaction. I had saved him from a life of pretending. He finished his sandwich. He stood up. The foreman yelled, "Back to work, Hollywood!" Malik picked up a sheet of drywall. It was heavy. It hurt. But he carried it. He carried it up the stairs. And for the first time in his life, he felt the weight of his own existence. That evening, he got paid. $120 cash. It wasn't enough for a bottle of wine at the Reserve. It wasn't enough for a tire on a Porsche. But it was money he had earned. He had traded his sweat for it. He did not go back to the hostel immediately. He walked to the bus station. He bought a ticket for the crosstown line, the line that went out to the suburbs, to the estates. It took 2 hours. He sat in the back of the bus, watching the city turn into manicured lawns and iron gates. He got off at the stop a mile from my house. It was raining again. A cold, steady rain. He didn't have an umbrella. He walked along the shoulder of the road. Cars rushed past him, splashing water onto his work pants. He didn't flinch. He walked until he saw the stone pillars of the driveway. The gate was closed. The lights of the main house were on. Warm yellow light spilling out onto the wet grass. He stopped. He stood there in the darkness, hidden by the shadow of an oak tree. He could see into the window of the study. He could see me. I was sitting at my desk. I was reading a book. I looked calm. I looked solid, like a mountain that had weathered a storm. Malik took a step toward the intercom. His hand reached out to press the button. He wanted to ring it. He wanted to hear my voice. He wanted to say, "Dad, I'm here. I'm working. I'm sorry. Let me in. It's cold out here." But his hand stopped inches from the button. He looked at his reflection in the wet metal of the gate. He saw a man in dirty clothes, a man with nothing to offer. If he rang the bell now, he would just be begging again. He would be the prodigal son returning not with wisdom, but with hunger. He would be asking for a rescue. And he knew, with a sudden crystal clarity, that I wouldn't open the gate. Not for a beggar, not for a boy who needed saving. I would only open it for a man. He pulled his hand back. He shoved it into his pocket. His fingers brushed against the engagement ring he still carried. The ring Courtney had thrown at him. He took it out. The diamond glinted in the security light. It was worth $40,000. He could pawn it. He could get a hotel room. He could buy a suit. He could pretend for a little while longer. He looked at the house. He looked at the ring. He walked over to the drainage grate by the side of the road. The water was rushing down into the sewer, dark and murky. He opened his hand. The ring fell. It made no sound as it hit the water. It was gone. He had let go of the aesthetic. He turned back to the gate. He looked at me one last time through the window. "Not yet," he whispered to the rain. "Not yet." He turned around. He started the long walk back to the bus stop. His boots were heavy with mud. His body ached. He had no idea what he was going to do tomorrow or the day after that. But as he walked away from the mansion, away from the safety net, he stood a little straighter. He walked with a rhythm. He was Isaiah Carter's son. He had the blood of a man who built an empire from nothing. He would build his own, or he would die trying. He walked into the night, leaving the lights of my house behind him, finally understanding that the only way home was the long way around. I saw him on the security camera monitor in my study, a grainy figure standing in the rain outside my gate. He was shivering. His clothes were soaked through, sticking to his body like a second skin. He had been standing there for 20 minutes, just looking up at the house, like a sailor looking at a lighthouse from a sinking ship. My hand hovered over the button that would open the gate, the button that would let him in, give him a warm towel, a hot meal, and a soft bed. It was the button every instinct in my body wanted to press. He was my son, my only son. The boy I had taught to ride a bike. The boy I had held when he scraped his knee. But I remembered the text. "You don't fit the aesthetic." I remembered the spa bill. I remembered the years of entitlement that had turned my sweet boy into a stranger who thought love was a currency. If I opened the gate now, I would not be saving him. I would be enabling him. I would be telling him that there are no consequences for betrayal, that Daddy will always fix it. I pulled my hand back. I stood up. I walked to the hall closet and put on my raincoat. I grabbed a large black umbrella. I walked out the front door. The rain was heavy, a cold, relentless downpour that drummed against the roof of the porch. I walked down the long driveway. My boots crunched on the wet gravel. Malik saw me coming. He straightened up. He wiped the rain from his face, trying to look presentable, trying to salvage some shred of dignity. But it was gone. He looked like what he was, a broken man. I stopped 10 feet from the gate. The iron bars separated us. I did not open them. "Dad," Malik said. His voice was hoarse. "Dad, please. I am so cold." I looked at him. I saw the blisters on his hands. I saw the exhaustion in his eyes. "What are you doing here, Malik?" I asked. "I have nowhere else to go," he said. "Courtney kicked me out. The Vances, they hate me. I have no money. I have no friends. I have nothing." "You have your health," I said. "You have your 2 hands. That is more than I had when I started." "Dad, stop!" Malik cried. "I get it, okay? I get the lesson. I was a jerk. I was ungrateful. I am sorry. I am so sorry. Just let me in. Let me come home." I shook my head. "This is not your home, son," I said. "This is my home. You made it very clear that I did not belong in your life. You made it very clear that my presence was an embarrassment to you." "I was wrong," Malik shouted. "I was stupid. I was trying to impress them. I was trying to be someone I'm not." "And who are you, Malik?" I asked. "I am your son," he whispered. "Are you?" I asked. "My son knows the value of $1. My son knows that respect is earned, not bought. My son would never let a man call his father a slur and then ask for wine." Malik flinched. He knew I had seen the video. "I was scared, Dad," he said. "I was scared of losing her." "And in your fear you lost yourself," I said. I stood there in the rain, looking at him. I saw the boy he used to be, hiding behind the eyes of the man he had become. I wanted to hug him. I wanted to tell him it was going to be okay. But love is not just about comfort. Love is about truth. And the truth was, he was not ready to come home. I reached into my pocket. I pulled out a small white card. It was a business card. I walked to the gate. I slid the card through the bars. Malik took it. He looked at it. It was wet with rain. Johnson's Auto Repair, Tulsa, Oklahoma. "What is this?" Malik asked. "It is a job," I said. "A job? In Oklahoma?" "Jim Johnson is an old friend of mine," I said. "He owes me a favor. I called him this morning. He needs a mechanic's apprentice. It pays $15 an hour. You start at the bottom. You sweep the floors. You change the oil. You learn how an engine works." Malik stared at the card. "Dad, I don't know anything about cars. I am a marketing director." "You were a marketing director," I corrected him. "Now you are nothing. You are a blank slate." I looked him in the eye. "Take the job, Malik. Go to Tulsa. Get a cheap apartment. Work with your hands. Learn what it means to be tired at the end of the day because you built something, not because you spent something." "But how do I get there?" Malik asked. "I have no money." I reached into my other pocket. I pulled out a bus ticket, one way to Tulsa, and $100 in cash. I slid them through the bars. "This is the last money you will ever get from me," I said. "Make it last." Malik took the ticket and the cash. He looked at them like they were alien artifacts. "Dad, please," he said. "Don't send me away. I can't do this. I will die out there." "You won't die," I said. "You will live. For the first time in your life, you will actually live." I stepped back. "If you are still there in 1 year," I said, "if you hold that job for 1 year without asking me for a dime, if you learn to stand on your own 2 feet, then call me." "And if I don't?" Malik asked. "Then do not call," I said. I turned around. "Dad!" Malik screamed. "Dad, wait!" I did not wait. I walked back up the driveway. The rain beat against my umbrella. It was a heavy, lonely sound. I heard him crying behind me. I heard him calling my name. It took every ounce of strength I had not to turn around. It took more strength than lifting a transmission. It took more strength than building a company. It was the hardest thing I have ever done. I walked into my house. I closed the door. I locked it. I went to the window and watched. Malik stood there for a long time. He looked at the house. He looked at the card in his hand. He looked at the bus ticket. Then, slowly, he turned away. He started walking down the road, his head bent against the rain. He was walking toward the bus station, toward Tulsa, toward a life he had never imagined. I watched him until he disappeared into the darkness. "Good luck, son," I whispered. I went to my study. I poured a glass of bourbon. I sat in the dark and listened to the rain. I had broken him. I had stripped him of everything. Now, it was up to him to put the pieces back together, to build a man out of the rubble. I hoped he could do it. I prayed he could do it, because if he couldn't, I had lost him forever. But if he could rise from this, then he would finally be the son I always wanted. He would finally fit the aesthetic of a Carter. I raised my glass to the empty room. "To the long road home," I said, and I drank. The seasons changed 4 times since I stood in the rain and watched my son walk away into the darkness. Spring brought the wildflowers to the meadow behind my house, but no phone call. Summer brought the humid heat that sits heavy on your chest like a memory you cannot shake, but no letter. Autumn turned the oak trees to gold and crimson leaves falling like dying embers, but there was no sign of Malik. I kept my word. I did not call him. I did not check on him. I did not ask Sal to drive past the auto shop in Tulsa to see if he was still there. I had to let the silence do its work. Silence is a kiln. It either hardens the clay into something useful or it cracks it into dust. I did not know which one my son would become. Now it was late October. The air was crisp and smelled of pine needles and damp earth. I was at the lake. It is a private spot about 20 miles from my estate. A small cabin I bought years ago, not for the value of the land, but for the quiet of the water. I was sitting in my folding chair at the end of the wooden dock. My fishing rod was propped against the railing. The line disappeared into the dark, glassy surface of the lake. I was not really fishing. I had no bait on the hook. I just liked the act of waiting. It reminded me that the world moves at its own pace and no amount of money can make a fish bite before it is hungry. I was thinking about Beatrice. I was telling her in my head that I hoped I had done the right thing. It is a terrible burden to break your own child. You wake up in the middle of the night wondering if you were a teacher or a torturer. You wonder if he is hungry. You wonder if he is cold. You wonder if he hates you. Then I heard it. It was not the smooth purr of a luxury engine. It was a rattle, a cough, the sound of a combustion engine that has seen too many miles and missed too many oil changes. I did not turn around immediately. I listened to the tires crunching over the gravel road that led down to the cabin. It was a heavy vehicle. The suspension squeaked as it hit the potholes I never bothered to fix. The engine cut out. The silence returned, but it was different now. It was charged. It was waiting. I heard a door open. It creaked on rusted hinges. Then the heavy thud of it closing. Footsteps. They were not the light, quick steps of a man in Italian loafers. They were heavy, deliberate. The sound of work boots hitting the earth. Thump, thump, thump. I kept my eyes on the water. My heart was hammering against my ribs, a rhythm of hope and fear that I could barely control. "Hey, old man." The voice was familiar, but it was rougher, deeper. It had gravel in it. It sounded like smoke and exhaust. I reeled in my line slowly. I placed the rod on the deck. I stood up. My knees popped. I am 74 now. The year had aged me. I turned around. There was a truck parked near the cabin. It was a Ford F-150, maybe 15 years old. The paint was peeling. The bumper was dented. The bed was full of tools and spare parts. It was an ugly, beautiful machine. And leaning against it was a man. He was wearing blue jeans that were stained with oil and grease. He wore a gray t-shirt that was tight across his chest and a flannel shirt unbuttoned over it. He had a beard. Not a groomed, stylish, trimmed beard, but a thick, unruly growth that covered his jaw. His skin was dark, not from a spray tan, but from the sun. He looked tired. He looked worn, but he was standing straight. His shoulders were back. He was not slouching. He was not posing. It was Malik. But it was not the Malik who had stood at the altar in a tuxedo. It was not the Malik who had whined about aesthetics. This was a stranger wearing my son's face. I looked at him. He looked at me. We stood there for a long time. The wind blew across the lake, rippling the water. "You are still using that old rod," Malik said. He nodded at my fishing gear. "You can afford a better one." "It works fine," I said. My voice was steady, though my throat felt tight. Malik pushed himself off the truck. He walked toward the dock. He did not run to hug me. He walked with a slight limp. "Hurt your leg?" I asked. "Dropped a transmission case on it 3 months ago," he said. "Broken toe. It healed crooked." He stopped a few feet away from me. I looked at his hands. They were hanging by his sides. They were not soft anymore. They were covered in scars, small white lines across the knuckles, burn marks on the forearms. His fingernails were short and rimmed with black grease that never really comes out. Those are working hands, I thought. Those are my hands. "Did you catch anything?" Malik asked, looking at the water. "Not a thing," I said. Malik smiled. It was a small smile. It did not reach his eyes immediately. His eyes were serious. "I got the job," he said. "Jim Johnson is a hard man. He made me sweep the shop for 2 months before he let me touch a wrench. He called me Hollywood." "I bet he did," I said. "I lived in a trailer behind the shop." Malik continued. "It didn't have hot water for the first 6 weeks. I had to boil water on a hot plate to wash the grease off." He looked down at his boots. "I thought about quitting every day, Dad. Every single morning when the alarm went off at 5, I thought about calling you. I thought about begging. I thought about stealing. I thought about walking into traffic, but you didn't," I said. "No," Malik said. He looked up at me. "I didn't, because I met a guy named Earl. Not your friend Earl. Another Earl. He works at the shop. He is 60 years old. He has been fixing cars his whole life. He barely makes ends meet, but he invited me to his house for Thanksgiving. His wife cooked a turkey. Their house was small. It was messy. It smelled like dog." He paused. "But they were happy, Dad. They laughed. They loved each other. They didn't care about the aesthetic. They didn't care that I was the son of a millionaire or that I was sleeping in a trailer. They just treated me like a human being." Malik's voice cracked slightly. "I realized that I had never been happy," he said. "I had been comfortable. I had been entertained. But I had never been happy. Not until I fixed my first engine, a 1998 Honda Civic, replaced the head gasket. When I turned the key and it started, when I heard that hum, I felt something. Pride," I said. "Yeah," Malik whispered. "Pride. It wasn't your pride. It was mine." He reached into the back pocket of his jeans. He pulled out a white envelope. It was crumpled. It had a grease stain on the corner. He held it out to me. "What is this?" I asked. "Take it," he said. I took the envelope. It felt thick. I opened it. Inside was a stack of bills, 20s, 10s, 5s, even some 1s. They were worn and dirty. I counted it. $500. "It isn't much," Malik said. "I make $15 an hour. Rent is $400. Food is expensive. But I saved it. Every week I put a little bit in a jar." "What is it for?" I asked, looking at the money. "It is for the suit," Malik said. "The tuxedo, the one I ruined, the one you paid for." I looked at him. "I know it cost $5,000, Malik said. "I know this is only 10%. But it is a start. I will pay you the rest. It might take me 2 years. It might take me 5. But I will pay back every cent of the wedding, every cent of the penthouse rent, every cent of the debt." I looked at the crumpled bills in my hand. $500. To me, Isaiah Carter, $500 is nothing. It is a dinner. It is a tank of gas. But to this man standing in front of me, this man with the limp and the scarred hands, this $500 was blood. It was sweat. It was skipping meals. It was working overtime. It was the most valuable money I had ever held in my life. I felt a tear run down my cheek. I did not wipe it away. I let him see it. "You don't have to do this, son," I said. "Yes, I do," Malik said firmly. "I have to. Because if I don't, I am still just a guest in your life. I want to be a man." He took a step closer. "I met a girl," he said softly. "Oh?" I asked. "Her name is Sarah. She is a waitress at the diner near the shop. She drives a Corolla with a dented bumper. She thinks my name is Malik and that I am a mechanic from Chicago. She doesn't know about the money. She doesn't know about the company. She likes me because I fixed her radiator for free on my lunch break." He smiled again, and this time it reached his eyes. "She fits the aesthetic, Dad, because the aesthetic is real." I nodded. I put the envelope in my jacket pocket right next to my heart. "Thank you," I said. Malik looked at me. He looked uncertain for the first time. "So," he said, "the year is up. I did it. I didn't call. I didn't beg." "I know," I said. "So, am I allowed to come in?" he asked. "Am I allowed to visit? Or is the gate still locked?" I looked at the lake. The sun was beginning to set, turning the water into liquid gold. I looked at my son. "The gate was never locked to keep you out." "Malik," I said. "It was locked to keep the boy in so the man could break out." I reached out and grabbed him. I pulled him into a hug. He smelled of oil and sweat and cheap laundry detergent. He felt solid, hard muscle. He hugged me back and his grip was strong. He didn't just lean on me. He held me up. We stood there on the dock for a long minute, 2 men holding on to each other in the quiet of the evening. "Welcome back," I whispered. He pulled away. He wiped his eyes with the back of his dirty hand. "So," he said, clearing his throat, "are you hungry? I drove 20 hours straight to get here. I haven't eaten since Missouri." I smiled. I packed up my fishing rod. I picked up my tackle box. "I am starving," I said. I started walking toward his truck. "Let's go home," I said. "The big house. It has been too quiet." Malik walked beside me. "I will order pizza," he said, grinning. "Just kidding." "Too soon?" "Too soon," I said. We reached the truck. "I have steaks in the freezer," I said. "And potatoes. And collard greens in the garden." "Sounds good," Malik said. "But there is a condition," I said, stopping by the door of his beat-up Ford. "What?" Malik asked. "You cook," I said. Malik laughed, a deep belly laugh that echoed off the water. "I can cook," he said. "I learned. Earl taught me how to make a pot roast that will make you cry." "We will see," I said. I climbed into the passenger seat of his truck. It smelled of grease and hard work. The seat was torn. The dashboard was cracked. It was the finest carriage I had ever ridden in. Malik got in the driver's seat. He turned the key. The engine coughed and roared to life. He put it in gear. We drove up the gravel road, leaving the lake behind. We were going home. Not to the aesthetic, not to the image, but to the kitchen, to the fire, to the family. And for the first time in a long time, I knew that when I eventually closed my eyes for the last time, the empire would be in good hands. Not soft hands, but working hands. The hands of a carter. We sat in the kitchen that night and the smell of the pot roast filled the house. It was exactly as Malik had promised. Tender, savory. It tasted like patience. We ate on the simple white plates I have used for 20 years. We did not talk about business while we ate. We talked about Tulsa. We talked about Jim Johnson and Earl. We talked about how hard it is to get oil stains out of denim. But the next morning I called Dante. He arrived at 9 sharp. He looked at Malik sitting at the kitchen table drinking coffee from a chipped mug. Dante looked surprised. He expected to see a broken man begging for a handout. Instead, he saw a mechanic with calloused hands and a quiet confidence. I put a document on the table. "This is the new will," I said. Malik put down his coffee. He did not reach for the paper. "I am not leaving you the money, Malik," I said. "Not the way you think. The liquid assets, the investment accounts, the hundreds of millions of dollars that you thought were your birthright. They are gone." Malik nodded slowly. "I understand, Dad. I don't want it. I can make my own way." "I know you can," I said. "That is why I am doing this." I pointed to the document. "I have established the Beatrice Carter Scholarship Fund," I said. "It is a trust dedicated to paying for trade school and college for kids from the South Side. Kids who have grit but no backing. Kids like I was." Dante adjusted his glasses. "It is fully endowed," he said. "It is one of the largest educational trusts in the state." "And you represent the trust," I said, looking at Malik. "Me?" Malik asked. "You are the executive director," I said. "It is a full-time job. You will read every application. You will interview every candidate. You will find the diamonds in the rough, and you will give them a chance. You will spend the rest of your life giving my money away to people who actually need it." Malik looked at the document. His eyes were wide. "You will draw a salary," I continued. "It is a fair salary. It is enough to pay a mortgage on a normal house. It is enough to buy a reliable car and put food on the table. But it is not enough for a Porsche. It is not enough for first-class tickets to the Maldives. And it is certainly not enough to attract another Courtney." Malik picked up the pen. He did not hesitate. He did not ask for more. He signed his name. He wasn't signing for a fortune. He was signing for a responsibility. 3 months later, Malik married Sarah. They did not get married at the Grand Estate. They got married in the backyard of my house. I grilled the steaks. Earl and his wife drove down from Tulsa. Jim Johnson was there wearing the only suit he owned. It was a small wedding. There were no influencers. There was no aesthetic. There was just love. As for Courtney, she got what she wanted. Or at least, she got what she thought she wanted. I saw her picture in the society pages last week. She finally got married at the Grand Estate. The photos showed her in another custom gown surrounded by white roses and crystal chandeliers. She looked beautiful in that frozen porcelain way. Her groom is a real estate developer named Harold. Harold is 82 years old. He needs a cane to walk. In the wedding photos, he is sitting in a chair while Courtney stands next to him, her hand on his shoulder. She is smiling for the camera. But I know that look. I saw it in the eyes of the men I used to work with who hated their jobs but couldn't quit because of the debt. It is the look of a prisoner. She secured the bag, as they say. She has the mansion. She has the black card. But she also has to wake up every morning next to a man she does not love. She has to be a nursemaid to a bitter old man who treats her like a trophy he bought at an auction. She chased the aesthetic, and she caught it. Now she has to live in it. Malik and Sarah live in a 3-bedroom house 20 minutes from me. They drive a Toyota. On Sundays, they come over for dinner. Malik helps me fix the fence. Sarah helps me in the garden. We laugh. We tell stories. Sometimes I look at my son and I see the grease under his fingernails that he still can't quite scrub away. I see the gray hairs starting to show in his beard. I see the way he looks at his wife with genuine adoration, not possession. I took away his inheritance of money, and I gave him an inheritance of character. I took away his safety net, and I gave him wings. He is not the richest man in the city. But when he walks into a room, he walks with his head high. He knows that everything he has is his. He knows that if the world burned down tomorrow, he could rebuild it with his own 2 hands. That is the only legacy that matters. Family isn't defined by DNA, but by respect and loyalty. Isaiah's story teaches us a brutal but necessary truth. Enabling toxic behavior isn't love, it is destruction. By stripping his son of unearned privilege, Isaiah didn't just save his wealth, he saved his son's soul. True inheritance isn't money, it is the capacity to stand on your own feet. As for those who measure relationships by net worth, they eventually learn that when the money runs dry, their shallow love evaporates, leaving them with exactly what they deserve: nothing. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us grow and bring you more stories like this one. What would you have done if you were in Isaiah's shoes? Would you have forgiven Malek sooner? Let me know